8:01 and beg and plead for a roll
welcome
call.
anyways.
Yeah. If I must. Ryan Slack. Jackie Whitsitt.
Yes.
Jennifer Riffle.
Present.
Gary Tenenbaum.
Here.
Auden Schendler.
Here.
Bill Infante.
Yes.
And Katie Schwer.
Not here.
Okay.
Our first item is the consent agenda. Are there questions or items that we would like to pull off the consent agenda? Hey, you two. Consent agenda.
Sorry.
Or is
Mayor,
there?
I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. So at this point in time, we will let the public talk, which I see a public person. Anybody from the public who would like to make comments on items that are not on the agenda can come up to the microphone or up to the table. We just ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Identify yourself, be nice. We will not make any decisions, but we will listen with all our hearts and souls.
Chris Matera, Basalt Chamber of Commerce. I am here to announce an election education event that will be happening on October 1st. Also, happy National Voter Registration Day. Everyone register to vote. So on October 1st at lunchtime at the Basalt Regional Library, we will be hosting an educational event with Count Me in Colorado, which provides nonpartisan information about the 13 statewide ballot initiatives. So hopefully you're getting a very thick packet in the mail of all the information. We are also, on top of that, getting local representatives for the different local ballot issues that will be available. So RAFTA, CMC, we're also reaching out to Basalt Fire. So this is mainly to be an educational event for the public so they can learn about the different issues and kind of get the Cliff Notes version. 13 issues in 1 hour is pretty quick versus that packet that everyone's getting in the mail. So we hope you attend. It's bring your own lunch. And if you cannot make that, Aspen is also hosting a similar event in the evening. It's just statewide issues only at the Little Nell, I believe starting at 5:30.
Limelight.
The Limelight, yep.
It is at the Limelight. Oh, quickly, does anybody know when homecoming is and the homecoming parade and all that?
Yes. Watkins, do you want to talk about the homecoming parade a little bit? It's October 6th.
Oh, so it's not that far away.
It's coming up. But because of some amendments we did to our special events policy that you all did a few months ago in May, I think it was, we're going to do this administratively through the technical review committee. So we are reviewing it and talking to the police department.
I mean, I don't care about that part of it. I just wanted to tell the public when the homecoming is and when the
October
parade
5th.
is.
Yes.
You got it?
It is the 5th.
October 5?
Yes, that's a Friday.
Should be.
Okay, great. So that's not
Yes.
very long. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, mayor and council reports and comments. Anybody have any comments, anything to report from since last time we were here? Gary?
I got a comment. I would love to find a way to see what council would like to potentially support. There's a lot of ballot initiatives coming, and there's some ones that I would think as a council we would potentially want to lend our support as a council. And so I was hoping that for the next meeting that we could get on the agenda, you know, kind of whatever we need to do to support. You know, I'm looking at for Picken County, the Healthy Communities Fund.
Right.
I think that's been an incredible, you know, fund for the community, and it's really helped. And then Eagle County is trying to reauthorize their open space. They're both 1A, so it's going to be interesting to see how that works. But it's Eagle County 1A and Picken County 1A. So the Eagle County open space is looking to not raise the taxes. Hey, I get 3 minutes, that's it.
How's it feel?
Man, I had to go run for council to get shut down.
I'm sorry, Gary.
But so yeah, I would love to see if the council would support the Eagle County open space and the Healthy Communities Fund. And honestly, I'd be happy to bring, I mean, whatever else. There's so much stuff on this ballot that, you know, I think, you know, sometimes it's really nice when governments support those people sometimes listen to us and
For clear cut
sometimes not.
kind of thing. So we can talk about that, yeah.
Madam Mayor, just briefly, on the next agenda, we did have a number of resolutions that we were planning to bring forward along that vein. We
You think
didn't
I
have
get
the
to that
Healthy
part of it?
Communities one on it, so we could bring that back. But we do have a question on RAFTA,
Yes,
on the
and I-
support for that. The state transportation funding, that tax, as well as the fire district tax, and the opposition for the, what is the?
Senate Bill 74.
74, that's correct.
74, yeah.
And so that would be an amendment of the Constitution, which would change the land use.
Right. Right,
Right,
that's
so-
the one that Sam's all.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so.
So there's a
could
number.
anybody that has additional, measures that you would like the council to consider, please contact Ryan by the time the packet goes together next time. That would be awesome, because we're gonna be running out of time. The ballots get mailed middle of October, and the noes vote right away. So, anyway, all right.
Where was this in the packet?
So at the very end, we have this, Carrie, the.
Yeah,
It's-
Gary's
I was looking at it, but,
Something around in here.
okay, support RAFTA, support state, support fire district tax. Okay, yeah, if we could, yeah, I'd like to add to it. Healthy.
Sure. Happy to do it.
Okay.
Other council comments, reports? Jennifer?
I would like to thank Public Works and all the other people who are involved with the forestry work at the River Park, clearing out and designating some of the snags. I recognize that they are wildlife habitat at the same time, but they are also a fire mitigation and a human safety. But the work is being done very well, and it's greatly improving access for that area of town-owned land. In that neighborhood as well, I noticed that the Roaring Fork Conservancy has streetlights up, and I would like to, and this will be an item later with P and Z, but strive towards having some consistency with our town lighting, because they're very different lights from the lights right next door at RMI, Rocky Mountain Institute.
And that was actually deliberate. You want me to respond to that?
Sure, well, there were lights put up, there were lights put down, they're now all different brightnesses. Nonetheless, I'd love to strive towards some sort of consistency with.
And maybe, is this something we maybe want to talk about? Is this a common issue that's out there that we're not consistent with either?
Well, it was actually, the intent was to be dissimilar, to have a kind of a family and a palette of lights, because in the downtown core, we needed to add more lighting, and so the idea is that we thought that there would be like a palette, a family of lights that would be consistent. People didn't like the RMI lights, so the idea was that there's lights that complement each other that we could, put in the downtown area, just as an additional light, and it wouldn't be matchy-matchy like a development. So if you don't like that, we can bring it back as a council discussion item, but it actually was deliberate.
Interesting, okay.
So if anybody thinks that's a good idea, let's talk to Ryan and
Sure.
talk about putting it on the agenda. That's good?
Yeah.
And also, I don't think I've been here at the same time as Gary for a meeting to thank him for chairing the meeting when I was gone. Everybody said he was a lot better than me, so that's good.
You're right. You picked a perfect meeting to take off.
Any other council? Okay, managers report.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. So the first is that on October 11th, CML is hosting a dinner up in Aspen. Looks like it begins at 4 p.m. And there's dinner and a social hour. There is a cost to it. It's $35, and we have to RSVP by October 3rd. So if any of the council is interested in going, just let us know, myself or Pam, and we can arrange that.
Jeff was interested.
Oh, great.
in Going as well.
What is it, just a dinner?
They talk about, they're going to talk about the upcoming legislative session and some of the stuff that's on there. So this is a pretty common thing. They'll do it every year. So just let us know on that. And then the second thing, just a quick update. for you all. We had the inspections that were done up on the hillside. We had about 25 people sign up for that, so hopefully people are getting ready to be doing some of that mitigation, and then we'll follow up the week of October 12th, I believe it is. So that's right around the corner. But we're also simultaneously working on the hillside over here and trying to get some of that mitigation done, which would be in October as well. We have a couple of the homeowners up there, not all of them, that are willing to participate in that. But I think we'll forge ahead with those that we get, and hopefully that'll be a good example project for us that people would be able to see what fire mitigation can look like. It doesn't have to be clear cutting, but that one's very visible from town, so we're excited to move ahead with that. And other than that, as you know, the next meeting, October 9th, we'll be bringing a draft budget back to you. That's a requirement for state law. So Christy has been busily working. She's not allowing me or anybody else in her office right now. And so there's been lots of work that has gone into both that and the capital improvements plan. So we'll be bringing that to you, and thank you to Christy for all your hard work and dedication on that. So that's it.
I have just one question for you. Do you know what the status is of the citizen committee that's going to be working with CPW on,
Thank
do
you.
you have anything on that?
I emailed them because I figured that question would come up, but I just emailed them today, so I didn't hear back.
Okay.
But before last week, I had been in contact with them. They had just received their report back from Keystone, and we're going through that. And according to CPW, we're in the process of getting their heads wrapped around the steering committee. So they're very much still forging ahead with that effort.
When you get something, if you give it to me, I will put it on the Facebook page.
Okay, great. And I'll be sure to inform all of council when that comes out. Yeah, thanks.
Jennifer?
I wanted to add that the third quarter water billing is coming out, and this is going to be usually the highest water bill that you're going to get throughout the year from irrigation through the summertime. And for those of you who ran your irrigation during the Lake Christine fire, that was a way to be part of the action, and a way to continue to support the Lake Christine is to pay your water bill and not contest it. You chose to be part of a process, and so let's back that up.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, that was another item for me to mention as well.
Okay, well, we've got everything covered. Okay, thank you. Okay, our next item is an interview with Jason Groves for our Parks and Open Space Committee. Susan, did you want to introduce that?
Yes, Jason, come on up and sit at the table. Jason Groves is an applicant for the Parks, Open Space, and Trails Committee, and
Welcome, Jason.
Hi.
at the last meeting, councilors expressed interest in meeting Jason and interviewing him for post, and he's attended a couple post meetings, so I think that he knows what he's getting into. So we have some questions if you want to, for the interview, if you want to use them, you can, you don't have to. But Jason is here for his interview.
Thanks, Jason. Actually, the information you gave to us in advance was very good as well, so I think that'll help us kickstart this conversation. Does anybody have anything in their back pocket that they wanted to ask Jason?
Sure.
Jennifer?
Jason, thanks for coming to visit us and interview. Tell me about your interest with Post, and are there any specific projects that you find of particular interest? Trails, parks, improvements?
Yeah, just generally, I have a keen interest in seeing the town improve and maintain what it has. I think, we have a lot of open space and parks and trails as it is, and some of those have been a bit neglected and sort of overlooked in the midst of all that's been discussed lately with River Park and that sort of thing. So I'd like to see attention be given to what we have as well. That's an interest I have. I'm a trail runner, so most of my running prior to the Lake Christine fire was on the state wildlife area, and so I was pretty devastated to see that, like everybody else, but also I view that as an opportunity to see how we can, better integrate that into downtown. I mean, it's such a great asset, and I think even after the fire, there'll be ways to utilize that consistent with the wildlife purposes for like Basalt Wildlife Area. So that's another project I'd like to see the post committee tackle.
Do you have any thoughts about how the committee structure works at this point in time? You've been to a couple meetings, right?
Yeah.
And can you give us just your thoughts about how, how we refer requests to that committee and how it comes back to us? Because we are struggling with that a little bit to make everything more clear for both the council and our volunteer committees so that we don't waste anyone's time and don't step on any toes.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very apropos question. That was something that struck me. The first couple of post meetings that I did attended, it seemed like there may have been, some miscommunication or misunderstanding as to where that direction comes. In my mind, it comes from this council. The way I view it as a committee should be people who have the time to focus on a particular interest or issue and take a deep dive into it. I think you all probably do not have time to do that in depth, and by the judge of the duration of your council meetings, I think that alone speaks to it. There's no way you can tackle everything. I think you all need a committee, and I hope that I have something to offer to help the post committee along. But bottom line answer in my mind, that direction comes from the council to the committees.
Anybody else?
Well, I have a question. It's, do you have any trail gaps in your mind that
Yeah.
you want to fill?
Oh, yeah.
that you want to fill?
Well, I live in Elk Run as well, and so, I think a lot of people would like to see some sort of connection to Albany from Elk Run. The question I think the town, from a connectivity standpoint, should be asking, at least for downtown, is if somebody wants to go for a hike or a run on a trail, and they want to stay at a hotel downtown, where would you tell them to go? There are only a handful of places I could tell them. And so Albany from downtown would be fantastic. I think obviously with the underpass, the south side, that's great too. But again, it brings me back to the wildlife area, and that is the closest in proximity to downtown. If somebody didn't want to have to drive a car to a trailhead from downtown, that's where I would recommend they go.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, because you're talking about something that we've talked about a lot, which is that we could do better on our information that we have available to people, as well as signage to
Right.
get to trails, whether they be running trails or biking trails or hiking trails, whatever. So those are good thoughts. Anybody else? Well, we do not have anything on our agenda to make a decision right here in front of everybody, but I would take comments from people if those appropriate, or I understand, if my memory serves me, that we have a subcommittee that,
We weren't going to do this subcommittee this time, Jackie.
okay.
Choose not to.
Oh, okay,
Sorry,
all right,
you were gone.
I was gone. Okay, there we have it.
Oh, yeah.
So how are we gonna do it?
Do we still have that?
Let's just
we
do it.
still have
Can we
that
just do it
subcommittee?
here?
Sure.
So, I've read your material and you seem great and interested and have ideas and are engaged and you're interested in doing it, so welcome aboard. I appreciate your willingness. I move that we appoint Jason to the post board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for
Congratulations.
offering.
Congrats, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
How are your little kids?
They're great.
Okay, next, P and Z presentation and discussion with council on the P and Z's aspirations for the Basalt Master Plan. Susan?
Okay, we have 6 members of the P and Z here. I'm going to introduce them, and if they could kind of move, if you guys could kind of move your chairs up, bring your own chair. This is really a discussion with the P and Z. The P and Z's pretty excited about working on the Basalt Master Plan, and today we have Bill Marin, the chair. We have Joan Keefe, Eric Volzek, Gino Rossetti, Tracy Bennett, and if you recall, we just appointed Rob Levitt, and he's here in his first.
Could I just interrupt you? Could somebody, a staff person, please move that out of the faces of these guys, and maybe we could get another face up to the table. Gino, can you pull up?
Watch that microphone, it's.
Oh, maybe put the microphone on the desk for
Well, they
now.
were actually good, yeah. Okay.
Remember
just to lean in.
Yeah, because we want to be able to catch you when you say something.
I don't know if I can.
Tracy, Rob, can you get up here or no? Well, if you talk, where the microphone. Come on.
Hey, Susan, technically I might be going.
Okay.
So, Bill's really gonna take Bill Marin, who's the chair, is gonna take the lead, and most of the conversation is really gonna be led by Bill, and at the end, if I feel like we kind of missed an important point that we've been concentrating on, then I'll add something, but I'll turn it over to Bill.
All right, thank you. Thank you. First
Bill,
off,
can I just say one thing first?
yes.
I noticed there's a tremendous amount of topics on here, so I don't know how you were gonna approach this, but when we get to the conversation piece, could you get it down to like, these are our 3 that float to the top, or,
We've practiced on
Everyone's-
keeping this short.
okay?
Allocated 5 minutes each.
Okay. First off, I want to thank you for making some time for us to do this. I think it's really important that we kind of get on the same page for this. This is something that we don't do that frequently, and it really helps for us all to be on the same page. And the second thing I was going to do is I was going to plug Jason, but that's a moot point now. But he was real active in our town planning, and both he and his wife Shayla, so I'm glad he's on board. Thanks for doing that. First off, I wanted to talk about some of our overall goals. You know, I've been part of 2 master plans previously with the town of Basalt, and while they were good efforts, I don't think that they were as useful to us as they could have been. I think mostly in the past, our master plans talked about what we didn't want as opposed to what we wanted. And so they were really good at helping us avoid things we didn't like. And that was great, that was useful. But they were not as useful as they could have been for us achieving the goals that we all wanted. You know, things like affordable housing, downtown vitality, connectivity between various parts of town, and you know, relating to things like the impact of second homes, which still is something we're always wrestling with. So I wanted to think that, just talk about that a little bit. You know, I wanted us to be more aspirational in what we did, and more positive than regulatory. It's not a regulatory document. It's a guiding document, and so I wanted us to look at it that way. And I also, we fell down some rabbit holes the last time, you know, with the arguing about the UGB. We spent a tremendous amount of time with that, and it just never came back up again. We lost the ability to use it as a tool for ourselves. It just became this line in the sand and a political dogma. And I also wanted us to approach it from a wholly different standpoint. You know, we spent a long time looking at growth numbers, and while that's important, we won't revisit those growth numbers for another 10 years, and to see where we were after all of that. So it's just a way of looking back, but we spent 3/4 of our time developing that. So I don't think that's as useful as it has been in the past. Next point I wanted to make is I think we need to work on doing this with a greater sense of community involvement. You know, when we did our town planning process, that was like a magical thing where the town really came together, just pulling ideas out of every corner. And that was something to strive for. We have a lot of data from that, but I think we could do a little more and look at gathering innovative ways of gathering more data like that. And one example of that is what Gino's group did up there, that color drawing and that picture of the model. That was just a really interesting way of thinking about downtown. And I just wanted to use that as an example of just one thing that came out of that was, truly great thinking.
Can I just ask, is that a moat around town?
No, those are streets. It's just the color. And also, I wanted to propose an idea, kind of a different idea, that when we do this, we look for, outside urban design help, like the best we can find, the best we can afford, not to step on any planning toes, but maybe a little planning help too, but mostly urban design. We have some real urban design problems with downtown that we really need to address. And, we're all smart people, but it's not our job. And
Amen, brother.
We'd like to hire people who it is their job and just get the most forward-thinking people we can find. And let's see, and at the same time, we'll address the same usual concerns: affordable housing, downtown vitality, the impact of second homes, but also the intergovernmental agreement. That sounds really boring, but with that conversation that Ryan set up with Larimer County was just really great. The ideas were, I'm not saying we should do that, but the notion of that sort of cooperative agreement, if we could come up with something like that with Eagle County, would be really, really great. And also, I wanted to talk a little bit about downtown. It's Gino and my job to talk about that. And, we have some real configuration problems downtown, and we've had for a long, long time. And I think that this time, we really need to address those in our master plan, as how we're gonna look at doing that, because it's something we always talk about that we wanna change, and we never come out of it with any inkling of the tools of how to do it. And I think this is our opportunity to do that. And that's where the urban design work comes in, to use that expertise to help us solve those sort of problems, of vitality, connectivity. And I'm gonna end this with, Eric's gonna talk about this more, but getting young people to live downtown. I've got 2 adult children who, one of them is living in my basement. And I would love for them to be able to afford a place somewhere, and they want to live downtown. And that's one thing that came out of the Our Town planning process. When we reached out to people 30 and under, it was a surprising result that what they wanted to do is they wanted to live in an urban environment, live car-free, and utilize mass transit and walk to services. That was that blew me away. I wasn't expecting that at all. And I think that that's something we can really strive for with our downtown. So with that, I wanted to turn it over to Gino so he can do a little bit of talking about his thoughts on that.
The Basalt Master Plan, to start with, must consider all of Basalt. We're talking about the Old Town Historical District, we're talking about Southside, and we're talking about Willits. We are one community, even though we have some not divisions, but we have some different expertises in both areas, and that we should try to find in the master plan a way to pull us all together, be through transportation or any other aspect of it. We need to focus on the historical district really strong, making this downtown really being. We had a master plan that worked quite well with both the master plan and development plan for Willits. And for all that's said and done, Willits is pretty damn good. Affordable town, that part of the town that does exist with a lot of strength behind it. One of the problems in coming up with this, when you talk about the historical part of the downtown, is what identity do we want Basalt to be? We've never really kind of come to grips with it, and no matter whatever design expertise you're going to get, someone has to ask the question, and you really are part of the decision making. We on the Planning Commission need to have us be in lockstep with you, that we carry out what we finally all agree to as being a potential identification to the town, and what it's not and what it could be. There's a lot of aspects about what it's it's not. And there's no point in going into that over and over again. We need to include, obviously, our parks and rivers. This is part of the strength of what we've got, enabling both the arts community, the research community, the talent that's there, and bring that all together in a piece. And that just isn't just words that's happening. That has to do with everything from landscape to graphics to lighting, and just a stronger ability to provide a more pedestrian orientation. I personally feel that that's part of the identity of us, is the parks and the rivers and pedestrian orientation. And that's what I hope that we can discuss that with you in an intelligent way. Speaking of that, we need to have members of the council to state their personal and present thoughts. We almost have different council than we did when we started all this quite a while ago, but not all that different and not all that abstract from it. But we need to know what it is that you want also. What do you think that you want even? What it is that you hear from the community now? We have heard different stories, and they kind of come up and come down, and depending on who's screaming at whom, that's what the hell we left for. We can't do that if we're going to do a good master plan. We need to have you stand up and be, yes, I heard this, and this, but I think we got to do this. That's my personal opinion. That's really your personal opinion, or whatever it is. We need to know that, because then that helps us move forward. We talked about what I do a little pro bono teaching that youth entity on the design students, and what we have up there at the top represents design of we took the Clark's Market as an entity and said, okay, this is what I want you to do. In the early part of the fall of 2016, one of the kids, and these are all kids that are mostly sophomores, juniors, and seniors in high school, and they volunteered their time, and it's wonderful. And they immediately grasped onto something that I should have told them up front. They said there's a big gap between, we have retail also on Two Rivers aside from Midland. What do we do about that? And that's also involving housing as it would be, retail as it would be, and any kind of place. So they put together their thoughts on what could be done on this piece of property and how it could tie in, but they were very conscious, and I really appreciated it. They were very conscious about what the people and the retailers of Midland can do. They need help. They need help badly. And if we can help that, make the Clark's Market entity as a continuum, if you will, all the way over to Two Rivers Road and the retail over there, then you start to blend the whole thing. I think most of you, maybe all of you, have been to Grand Junction at one point or another, and hopefully down to Main Street. Am I pretty correct on that? I'm going to guess, I guessed as much. That's just an idea of what I'm trying to say. Maybe we could turn our Midland into the Main Street of Grand Junction. But it takes a bold move. It takes a bold statement from you as well, because we would have to work a way to find a way to, if we're going to close down Midland to a narrow part of driving and eliminating some cars, eliminating all the trucks and all the deliveries, we have to find another way to get that. And the thought being that when we came around would be to bring another road up along the backside of Tempranillo, the Alpine Bank, and connect it around, and let that be the drop-off, the delivery. And while we're at it, and the city's gonna put in a new street, why don't we go in and get a parking in there at the same time? Maybe a simple 200-car underground parking that could serve everything, and then that would be the base of the highway. And I just think that if you said one thing, something else is gonna happen from it, and you've gotta have faith in yourselves that we can really pull it off. And then on top of that platform, you can then have developers come in, and whether it's more hotels or more smaller type retail, maybe again residential on top, just as it is on the other side of Midland, then you start grabbing the whole thing together. And that's the kind of thinking that we need to have you on board with us so that when we talk with the master planners and what it is, we get the census and we're all together on one team.
Thank you, Gino. Change is an opportunity. And if we embrace it and we look at the big picture for the future, it may actually cost us less. My subject is connecting the community as one town. I feel it is important to increase the connectivity between three areas, Old Town, South Side, and Willits. While Willits has more commercial offerings and amenities, Old Town and South Side has priceless natural assets, fire station, library, and schools. A strong community needs all these attributes to remain vibrant and sustainable. Herein, I include 5 points that I hope will be considered in our future plans. One is our traffic flow. We have a choke point at Highway 82 is also where we visually have a very limited gateway into Old Town. A underpass west of the light, south of the post office would increase safety, reduce congestion, and offer a framework to build a beautiful gateway into Old Basalt and South Side. 2, public transportation with a community shuttle van would be a tool for moving people without increasing parking and traffic. 3, very timely, is the parks. We have 21 parks up there in those blue blocks. I feel they should all be reviewed for the potential of creating more loops, less dead ends. Increase the signage for these parks and where they are. Increase signage for historic, local nature facts, and general information to inform people that are not familiar with the area. Enhance them with bike racks, adequate dog pit stops, and also fitness stations. And even further out of the box, we have a beautiful park over by the library. What if we connected that park with our own river park with a Roaring Fork swinging bridge? This is more branding opportunities for our Two Rivers image and draw people into one large, interesting, multi-ecosystem park. Beautiful, number 4, beautiful Two Rivers Road is currently a dangerous stretch for fishermen, walkers, and bikers. This should become a main artery for all to access. Construct a bike path along the river with widened spots for benches so people can pause and enjoy the view. The River Conservancy could be involved with signage explaining the value of riparian and river ecosystems. And 5th, and my final thing, is our branding. Needs to be consistent, whether it is logo, font, signage, whatever it is, and it should be for one diversified community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us tonight. So I'm going to talk about 2 primary things. One is looking at the bigger picture of what inventory do we currently have, where are our conversations going with our partners in the community as well as our neighbors around us, and what's that mean for our future. So we've reached out to Eagle. We've started to see lots of conversations happening, but in the 15 years I've lived here, there's never been a concrete agreement or working arrangement that makes sense to anybody. And so we end up with things like the tree farm that we have controversy and no one's sold on. So we want to start with having the conversation, what are the connections we have today? How can they be improved? And then also looking at what exactly do we have as an inventory in the town of Basalt and our neighbors. We've increased our affordable housing allotments. We have brought in numerous jobs, office jobs in the town. We've added wonderful facilities here. What are our numbers? What's our overall goal with affordable housing, attainable housing? How many jobs do we need to support in town? So when we have a project that might be as more controversial, we can say that's great or that's not so great. And we know what the numbers look like in advance. So we know that and we can see what that's going on. So point 1. Point 2, Bill alluded to this before, we've identified a missing hole in our community. I look at my own life as a teacher at the high school. I look at my life with my 16-year-old daughter. I look around all of us who have kids on the council, on P&Z, and there's nothing in town for 18-year-olds to 30-year-olds to come and do in Basalt. They're a missing part of our town. We asked the question of vitality. Well, their version of vitality is going to be a lot different for retired people or people coming here to fly fish 3 months of the year, or people who are at the Roaring Fork Conservancy. So we need to address, what does that look like? How are they included? Do we wait for one-off proposals, or do we kind of plan around this to bring them and offer that? I would love my daughter to go to school and come back and have a place to be a ski bum in Basalt and work here for a while, but they can't afford that. Within that is the mix of housing. Is affordable housing enough? Probably not. Attainable housing? We know second homes, we're not talking to them for them. So what's the mix overall that we need to be able to bring these people here? Is it a price range? We just want to be able to go and address that and see how we can bring that to our community and enhance what we have as a underlying part of what we can do.
Right.
You want to wrap it up? You want me to wrap it up?
You know, I think right now, this is, what we want to do is we want to have this as a conversation with you guys. We don't want this to be us just spewing ideas to you, but we want to start a conversation and keep that conversation going on all the way through the master plan. And so, if any of you have any questions of us, or comments about how you see what we just talked about, let's go.
Well, I think that we needed to have this conversation, for sure. And you're putting some stuff out there that I think about all the time. I think probably most of us do, which is there's a lot more questions than there are answers here. I mean, I think the beginning of a real master plan, and I preach this gospel to Eagle County, and they didn't do it, which is if you can't get some answers to some of these questions about how much housing really, you know, and some of these other questions that what's the growth really? What do we really need? I think that and what does the community want? So for us individually to say, this is what Auden wants, and Bill, and me, et cetera, we have got to get a single voice going on, because if you have 7 people saying what they want, that isn't gonna help you, because that's not gonna give you any direction. So I think once you start this master planning process, you need to get some of these questions answered with the citizen survey that I preached to the county, and they wouldn't do it. I think that's super important, and you could maybe play off of previous ones. And I think you need to keep it relevant and not get down to the nit-nats of what color do you want, you know, the wall to be. I don't think that's what we need in a citizen survey and some of these other study type answers that we haven't been updated for a while, and I think you need that as a core to start with. So that's my thought. Gary?
Well, I appreciate this, because I was here for the last master plan piece, and I do feel that it was more council-driven to the P&Z, and then the P&Z had to respond to it, and it wasn't as collaborative from the beginning. I think we need to come up with a vision overall. Gino said it. We gotta look at a vision for the whole town. And I think one of the best things we could start with is to really go out and find somebody who can facilitate, help us design this. I really think that would be a great start, because it's great that you guys are already thinking about it. You guys are putting bigger ideas on it. And if we can find that, you know, more innovative design and planning firm to really, you know, listen to P&Z, to council, to the community, and take enough time to get that, maybe we can actually get Eagle County to come along. Because if the community is on board with this process, I think it will change the way we did it in the past. You know, we had to make a fine line on the urban growth boundary, because there was a lot of things being proposed outside the urban growth boundary, and people were, you know, we had controversy between growth and too much growth. But I think now, if we can answer some questions up front of what the community would like to see, we could potentially avoid those conflicts. I do believe there will be conflict in this master plan. There's no way that we're gonna get out of this and everyone's gonna go, kumbaya, this is the greatest master plan ever. You're gonna see some controversy, but it's good, because I wanna see what the community as a whole really wants. And I think getting that firm on board and really trying to work a way to jointly work together through some of these things, we gotta let the P and Z work, but these quicker check-ins.
That's the main thrust of where I was going with this, pushing for this meeting, was that it's not just we're gonna kick this off and tell you about it,
Right.
but we want this to be a back and forth between these two boards throughout the process. You know, we wanna engage with council at regular intervals as we go through this and craft this together.
So maybe based on what Gary's saying and you're saying, next time we have like hopefully a longer work session, you can come to us with something like a proposal that we can bat around, because I do think this should originate with you, because this is what you talk about. We react to development proposals, that's what we do for a living, sorry to say. But this is what you take the time, and you have the brain power in the group to do this. So that's what I would like to see happen. I would like to see it start with you, bring us not a lot of work, rough outline of this is what we think we should be doing next, what do you think we should be doing next?
Well, I want to add thanks for the initiative to brief and to begin the process of having this dialogue. Timely for a couple reasons. We met as the council probably about 6-8 weeks ago and began talking about strategy. This is something that many of us have been encouraging very strongly, to step back from the immediacy of decision-making on specific proposals and to take a view of our town today and where we want it 5, 10, 15, 25 years in the future, and to use that as the basis to make decisions for where Old Town will be, where Southside, Willits, Elk Run, and all of the other parts that we call our town. But it's also relevant to what the counties are doing. I wouldn't stop at Eagle, frankly. It's also going to involve Pitkin, Garfield, and I would engage the state, since the transport element is going to be very important. I'd suggest that probably one of the things we want to do much sooner rather than later is to share what the council came up with as a very, very broad framework. It's the 50,000-foot overview, and there's nothing in it that's going to be surprising or shocking or that anyone would disagree with. It begins with a couple core objectives, like promoting economic vitality and development, like addressing things like safety, security, and social inclusion. And then you can begin to drill down at various levels within each of those and more. Environment might be a topic, as a for instance. But having these two processes move forward coincidentally is, I think, just a wonderful opportunity for us. And I again, am very pleased that we're looking at that. But the other elements, too, that I really loved about your framework is that you are talking about things that I think are very important. The ones that obviously appeal to me that I think are very important is the proposal to look at ways to attract the types of businesses the town wants. Green companies. I would argue we also have great franchise here with some of our NGOs, Roaring Fork Conservancy, RMI, Aspen Global Change. I mean, these are the real big thought leaders that we want to grow and we want more of. And then I would also argue that we perhaps want some more nonprofits as well. But enhancing the vitality of the East Basalt downtown area, that's your downtown issue. That's the major emphasis of the plan, and I agree. I think many of us would agree. I guess the only issues will be about advancing this. Having a master plan now that has been amended several times, but ultimately is the same as it was more than a decade ago, it argues for doing something sooner rather than later. We've talked about the budget that we do have allocated. It's not nearly enough. This will be a budget issue coming up Wednesday and then next on October 9th. So I would contemplate the kinds of figures that you think you would need. Ryan and I have discussed this at pretty significant length, but it would be good to have your figure as to what you think would be required to have the outside view. And frankly, I see you guys as the best and the brightest, but I think given where our town is at this point, an objective outside intervention could be valuable. It could inspire a different type of thinking. But you would be the best arbiters of that. I guess, looking forward, we could probably do a master plan in 6 months or 6 years. I hope we'll settle at something closer to 6 months, because there are a lot of decisions that have been suspended pending different outcomes. And I guess to that point, I don't see how we move forward with any individual initiatives without looking at the greater area. I'm thinking specifically of downtown here. You talked about examining the future land use designations of key parcels. Staff has identified, and there are about 10. I think we need to look at, as Gino said, what goes on with the Clark's Market, Frank Taverna property, all of that. Everything that goes over on the other side of the river, the Valero property, which I realize is unincorporated Eagle, but that doesn't matter. We need to include that in our planning if we want to have an integrated town, integrated Old Town, integrated with Basalt, or with Willits and the others. And so I guess we'll take this up probably tomorrow when we begin looking at our budget for the first time, and then when we begin applying numbers to the budget for things like the master plan. So please get us your estimate of what you think you might need or what you think it might require, so that we can address this as quickly as possible and bring someone on board, if it is a firm, an individual, group, whatever, to begin the process of defining these other urban elements that you mentioned, Bill.
Yeah, there was some impetus between our timing on this, is, you know, we need to have council buy-in to go this next step, because we're asking to do it in a bigger way than we have in the past. And so that's one big reason why we're here.
Could you clarify what you mean by what we need or require, in what way?
How much money? What kind of support do you need for the procurement process, for instance?
Well,
If
we
you
have
want to
to
issue an RFP for a national firm to come out to Basalt and assist us with thinking through urban design, urban planning, as much as we have so many great minds here that do this, I think that it would behoove us to reach a little bit beyond the boundaries of Basalt or the Roaring Fork Valley, frankly.
Let's keep going, because we don't have a whole much time, and I know Auden, you were.
You wanna go?
Okay, I will, I greatly appreciate the thinking outside the box. That's something possibly, yes, I will own it. I am the youngest person on council. That.
You're not live the longest.
What's that?
I could be your mom.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm being, you don't have to be young to appreciate thinking outside the box, but that is a imperative aspect to the future and vitality of Basalt. And that's something that I very much am behind and support. I also do support the living situations that have been created as far as attainable and affordable housing. There are places for 18 to 30-year-olds. The Real America project, that is phenomenal. More projects like that are ideal. And so keeping those in mind into the future with the planning. So with thinking outside the box, I do really support having some urban design and planning, especially outside the valley, bringing in some fresh eyes, some fresh brains. That's important. What I ask of you when coming back with what your financial ask is to provide 3 different options, not just one number. I'd like to see a menu with different ideas for each number. The master plan is a guiding document. It is valuable, and it is not the end-all be-all as well. And so looking for something in the middle ground there, something that will entice Eagle County to be involved, something that we could possibly put out there for joint planning for another organization, another county to get involved with. Please keep that in mind, that there are grants and partnerships. And And then as well, I think that it is important to clarify that council, we react more than just to development proposals in front of us. We are forward-thinking. We are having retreats. As Bill mentioned, we did come up with somewhat of a 50,000 foot view of what is our priorities, and planning and master plan is high on that list. So we are ready to partner with you and greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Auden?
Yeah, so bravo, thanks for meeting with us, and I agree with most everything you said. Gino, I gave a little book report on Grand Junction downtown to this group, you know, saying the same thing about a year ago. Nobody really paid attention to that.
I remember it vividly.
But that, you know, one of my regrets on council, part of the reason I came on council was I wanted to do this kind of big vision think. And we respond to things, and when I came on, we had no money. And by the way, this is gonna cost a lot of money, which is fine. You know, when he said, tell us what you need, I was gonna say, and double it.
Yeah.
Because we do need to have a bigger, professional, beautiful vision that incorporates real urban planning principles. Whatever you think of that, that's a beautiful drawing. It reminds me of children's books like Richard Scarry, of towns that are bustling. And we can debate whether it's too dense or whatever, but that's what we need. And, you know, the other thing is, when we talk about a citizen survey, you know, if we surveyed the citizens and 80% said they wanted downtown to be a park, that would be wrong. And I would say, vote me out of office if you feel that way. I'm not at the, you know, I'm gonna listen to the community, but there's some good principles that we need to apply. And so planners will come in and tweak us. They will say, no, the corner of CDC should be developed, not park. That ship may have sailed, but it's cool to have an outside perspective. So I really like that, and I think it's money well spent. And you know, these ideas of parking and connectivity and how we're gonna, you know, drive into town and what's walkable and what's not, and redoing all of Midland, like let's go big and have that document, and then realize we may not be able to do it all. We may go into a recession, but at least we'll have a broad vision instead of a kind of development by default where we look at one parcel and the plan is kind of general and we do what we can on that in the abstract. So this is great. We really are gonna need your support and work on this, but we're gonna, I think there's willingness here to really, you know, pay out and help.
Thank you.
One more thing.
Yeah, Gino.
Just, we don't get out of here at 7. She promised to shoot us, so. Looking at the clock.
They won't let me have a gun, so don't
We
worry.
do have a big one after this, bigger.
Several of you mentioned timing and things, and obviously that is very real.
We need a little change.
The timing that I'm asking for you, in particular the council, is that we want you to start thinking now, not after we've hired the design. They're not magicians. They can't just, no matter what they've done, they can only give you what they have done, and you can maybe pick and choose. But I think as leadership, if we said, this is what we want for sure, and this may or may not happen. And then on the other hand, when you talk about in timing, we all recognize that it isn't going to be overnight. And so, for example, with the main entrance to Basalt being right now coming over and going into the circle and then driving in past the gas station, past the trailer camp, finally getting into the attractiveness of the town, we think that that should be done, that whole entryway should be done now, even though we're recommending that we consider the drive underneath the highway for vehicular as well as pedestrian and bike, so we get a second way out of South Side. And so those are just timing incidents that we recognize, but if we don't have the big picture, we're just gonna dink around. We don't even need to talk about parking. But what we do need to say is, are we going to have paid parking, or do you want to find a way to make it tax type, I don't know, whatever kind it is. But don't get into the idea of how do we do the parking. We let parking people do that. But we need to have a gut feel, this is what I'd like to see.
Jackie, one quick
Yes, sir.
comment. You know, and look, thinking about this, we're gonna need it to be, kind of interchangeable components or different visions, because you might present an underpass and we just can't afford it. Or you present something that the community feels is too dense or not in the right place or whatever. So it's gonna have to be different scenarios maybe, but which are modular and you could move pieces in and out. So, and I think when you give the community different visions, they'll say, oh my God, I didn't think about that. That's so cool. So it'll open up the creativity.
So anyway, to thank you again, we do need to stop on this conversation, but I plan on us getting together as soon as you are ready. I think if you didn't get the gist of the support from this group, get it. Because there is huge support, and we really need your help, and we really need your creativity and the creativity of somebody that we bring in. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I think you're on the right track, and thank you so much for all your hard work and vision, honestly. Thank you.
I just want to say one last thing before we split up, that, I'd like to keep our communications as open as allowed by state law, And so, if you want to communicate, onesie, twosie with any of us, I think, I want to encourage that.
I
as
believe
much as
that's
we can.
totally okay when it's not about an application, when it's about creativity and master planning. Call any of us can call you. Got that, everybody? We got a head nod from the redhead right there, so we're good.
Legislative.
It's a legislative head nod. So, thank you, call.
Thank you
All right.
all.
Wait, didn't we appoint Rob?
Yes.
Oh, he's gonna get sworn in.
Oh, can we take a 2-minute break while they set up?
And same with.
And then we could Okay, our next item is a public hearing and continued discussion on Basalt River Park LLC. It's on behalf of the Roaring Fork Community Development Corporation. Colorado nonprofit has made an application to develop 28 residential units, 3 commercial buildings, which are proposed to include 2 nonprofit facilities and a food and beverage operation, and associated improvements on the property and on town-owned property adjacent to or near that property, commonly known as the Roaring Fork CDC. Development actions include rezoning to the CSC Zones District, a CSC sketch plan review, amendments to the CSC Zone District, sketch plan subdivision, ESA, and ESA Reach 2 floodplain review. James, why didn't I just let you read that?
I'll briefly go back over it. This evening, we've got Tim Belinsky here from Basalt River Park LLC, as well as Rich Carr from CCY Architects, representing the applicant group. So this is a continued public hearing on the application submitted by Basalt River Park LLC and the Roaring Fork Community Development Corporation. And it is to construct 28 residential units on the Roaring Fork Community Development Corporation's property, which is known as Lot 1 of the Basalt Community Campus, and everybody knows it as the Pan and Fork site. The applicant is also proposing to have a 1,000 square foot food and beverage facility, as well as to dedicate 7,000 square feet of land for the art base, as well as about 1,500 square feet to the Basalt Chamber to provide a visitor center as part of the project. And then also the applicant proposes to sell approximately 1 acre of parkland on the eastern extent of the property to the town. It is the area that was known as the Big V area on the eastern extent through the R-Town Master Plan amendment process. The site, as I indicated, it's a property of slightly over 2 acres. It's owned by the CDC and is marked in black fencing out on the site in the field. It's primarily flat and partially in the floodplain, and it's identified for mixed-use development on the master plan map that was done for the R-Town Master Plan amendments that were completed several years back. As the mayor indicated in reading the title, the application requests rezoning of the property to the Community Serving Commercial Zone District, which is the CSC Zone District, and they're proposing to amend the zone district further to allow for free market residential on the property, as well as to increase the allowable residential unit sizes from 1,400 square feet to 2,100 square feet. And then to reduce the housing mitigation requirement from 15% to 14% of deed restricted housing. There's also a sketch plan review for the CSC zone district, as well as a sketch subdivision that the mayor indicated. The review process, as was identified at the August 14th meeting, will include 2 rounds of review by the P&Z and the town council. This is a sketch plan review round. If the applicant received sketch plan approval, there would be a final plan review as well, which would include the P&Z making a recommendation to the town council on the final plan application. Council received a full presentation on the application at the August 14th meeting, so staff would suggest this evening breaking up the review into several discussion items per meeting over a series of a couple meetings. This evening, staff would like to briefly go over a couple discussion items that the P&Z considered, and they're the bigger picture discussion items. And then staff would suggest taking any applicant comments and taking public comments because it is a continued public hearing. And then council would suggest, staff would suggest council provide some initial impressions on the proposal, as well as go into some discussion on the bigger picture discussion items that staff has identified. So to briefly go into those discussion items, we've got them on the wall here. They're also on the front page of your staff memo, and we also have them on the screen for you to look at. The first one is mix and configuration of the land uses on the property. The proposed residential use is in the western extent of the property, located here. It's shown as D on your site plan. And then as you move towards the east, you've got the affordable housing residential building in this location. And then it transitions to the Art Base and Community Visitors Center. And then to the farthest east portion across from the Midland Spur connection. You have the 1,000 square foot food and beverage facility that's proposed. In terms of building and park areas, as I indicated, the applicant is proposing to sell the eastern extent of the property to the town for an extension of the park. And we have the building proposed on the mixed-use portion that is shown on the Our Town Master Plan Amendment. The food and beverage property goes a little bit further to the east than the Our Town Master Plan map shows. The mixed-use property, it goes into this open plaza area that's shown on the master plan. So there is some open plaza shown there, but you also have the food and beverage facility as part of that. Other topics, the code amendments to allow for free market residential use in the CSC zone district. This was a considerable discussion topic when the CSC zone district was amended several years back. And it occurred after the Our Town Master Plan Amendment was concluded. The council decided back at that time not to incorporate free market residential use in the CSC zone district for this property. So this is a main discussion item for this specific application to be considered. Other discussion topics, we've got the allowance for the dedication of land for the art base and the visitors center to satisfy the CSC zone district's anchor use requirements. The CSC zone district requires anchor uses to be established prior to or concurrently with the accessory uses. The proposal, the applicant is proposing to dedicate the land for the art base as well as the Chambers Visitor Center and have that satisfy the requirements for the anchor uses, and they're proposing to do that before residential building permit. So that would be a discussion topic for the council as well. And then finally, code amendment request to allow for 2,100 square foot residential units. The applicant is requesting to amend the zone district to increase the residential unit size from 1,400 square feet to 2,100 square feet in that zoning. So that's also a consideration. As was identified previously, staff would generally like to hear kind of council's initial impressions of the project this evening and thinks that discussion and focus on these bigger picture discussion items would be appropriate. It should be noted that there will be a financial analysis conducted on the project as we move forward, but the consultant's on hold, Ellers, at this point, because felt it necessary to get some initial feedback on these bigger picture topics before we went into the financial analysis. Also, you have P&Z's discussion items matrix that is in your packet. We also gave you a more legible copy at your table there. Staff felt that we should have the bigger picture discussion items before we get into the weeds on the matrix, but it provides for additional discussion items that the P&Z considered as part of their review. So staff also thought it appropriate to hold back on giving a draft resolution at this point until you had some more discussion about these larger topics and get some feedback on those before we get into the specifics of conditions and a draft reso. So this evening, staff would suggest taking any comments the applicant might have at this point, and then taking public comments and get into council discussion.
Okay.
Jim, do you have additional comments you'd like?
Yeah, I do. I want to introduce Rich Carr to my left with Kalakar Ya. Chris Matera behind me with the Chamber, Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, and Michael McVoy with the CDC. Since the August meeting where we presented the application materials, we've been able to continue to work on the development concepts and plans and take away some of these points. One, the park is a winner. Let's not take for granted that the park is the crown jewel in the site plan and that it has the potential to become the change agent for downtown. The property, owned currently by the CDC, will end up in the town's control and ownership, and we can easily see and envision events and all sorts of public interaction and gatherings in the park. With the grand opening of the Roaring Fork Conservancy building, it's highlighted the need to complete Two Rivers Road and get that black silt fence down. The art base is as solid an anchor as we could ever hope for. It is a vital part of this project, and with the dedication of land, will produce huge results for the benefit of the Basalt community. This nonprofit has proven history and is the current downtown activator. It should be the thing that we rally around and support. Anybody who attended the annual gala last month knows that it's done its part over the years to establish itself as a valley-wide art and holistic community service and reflects tremendously on the Basalt community. Residential is as necessary to this neighborhood and the ability to pull off this project as any other component is. It's both a tool available to bring this project and the park into being, plus the residents themselves become built-in downtown customers who have a vested interest in the area. Retail commercial would have a tough time surviving in this location, being so far removed physically from mainline downtown. This is a site for destination commercial, which means you need to have a reason for coming to the area, and you probably aren't there by accident or happenstance. A visitor center is an example of destination commercial, as is the art base. The restaurant business is tough in downtown Basalt, and there's really not room for a new restaurant of significant size without bumping out another. Given the draw that the art base will become and how it will work as an anchor that brings in people, we are researching how similar facilities are able to extend themselves to offer a cafe and food service of some sort. If the art base were able to convince itself that it could house a food and beverage component that would complement the coffee bistro building that's shown in the application, then it's a straightforward expansion solution that serves a captive customer and draws in more. The application takes into account the surrounding aspects of downtown, which will influence the uses and the flow of people in and out of that neighborhood. The importance of the pedestrian flow from downtown to RMI and the Roaring Fork Conservancy buildings cannot be understated. The park design needs to get underway to assure that the park and the development facets are all coordinated and support each other. And our application is a meet-in-the-middle solution that continues to work with neighbors and people who are interested in seeing the best possible resort for this important part of downtown. The application has drawn on what is feasible, realistic, and doable, rather than rely on something that may sound terrific but would rely on things that aren't reasonable to expect. We gauge our wants and aspirations with what can be done. The angel investor idea doesn't play into this application. The site has great potential but also inherent limitations. It's a beautiful place that is a fairly difficult access and visibility, but for the front, and is located in a very small town that has extraordinary seasonality swings. The site is a political hot potato, and we're trying to get to a workable solution. And the unique history of the site makes for a passionate group of people who want any development to be done in a manner that is responsible to the people who lived in the trailer park, the downtown that desires more vibrancy, those who want to temper and minimize any build-out, and being responsible to the environmental aspects associated with being located on the Roaring Fork River and on the edges of the new town park. There are a few things that I need to address. One is the site is not at all unfit for residential or any other uses due to being in the by the nearby river and floodplain. In fact, the site, along with the site for RMI's building, have already been built up in accordance with the requirements from the Army Corps of Engineers and will receive FEMA certification of that work, having been accomplished upon application. The existing Holy Cross electrical pole that's out there today is a significant problem to deal with. It was left in place because a workaround solution earlier was difficult to find, and that remains the case today. The development is intended to be a part of downtown in terms of scale, massing, and architectural character. While that can easily be misread while we are in sketch plan mode and things are highly conceptual, it bears repeating that this neighborhood will be a part of what is best about downtown Basalt. The RMI and Roaring Fork Conservancy buildings are actually object buildings of almost a suburban scale and not the intent of this application. And while it's said that it's not the town's role to ensure a project is economically viable, it's certainly not in the town's best interest to consider a project that is unbuildable and financially broke from the start. That would be a disaster in the making, so I'd encourage us to keep a balanced perspective on this because it is important in the overall approvals process that what is proposed can indeed be constructed. If council has any questions or needs a refresher about any of the materials from our August 14th presentation, we're ready to be involved tonight and appreciate your time and focus on this. Thank you.
Before we go to public comment, does anybody have any questions, clarifications? Anything else, James?
No, staff would suggest public comment if you don't have questions.
Okay, this is a public hearing. We will open the public hearing at about 7:25. Our only really rule is if we can all just be considerate of each other and that we do have a 3-minute limit on individual speakers. So who would like to start?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to,
Could you just state your name?
I'm sorry, Royal Laybourne.
Thanks, Royal.
And I want to thank everybody here tonight and council for the opportunity to discuss the proposal that has been laid out by the applicant. This has been a difficult process for the community because it's such an important cog in the way that the future of Basalt will unfold. And that we have participated actively to try and create the best amenity that we can for this important place on the edge of the river. This has been a fractured process, as we all know, and our community to some degree has been wounded, partly because of the recent difficulties we've had this summer, but because of the fracture about how to move forward on this parcel. I'd like to say for my own position and many others that we've worked together to defeat the previous proposal is that I wish that the town would purchase the whole CDC parcel and be able to have it as one contiguous park that is not developable. That being said, fully recognize that after going through this process as a community and as a participant of it, that it's better to be more pragmatic and that we can accomplish more by being truly innovative and creative and also collaborative and trying to take the initiative that has been expressed by these numerous public meetings and the efforts of the studies that have been done to gauge community values for this parcel, that we, a group of concerned citizens, architects, business owners, after the last presentation decided that we would try and take what we've learned from 4 or 5 years of meetings and coalesce it into something that we believe is practical, workable, and in the true civic best interest of the broader community, because we've heard through these meetings, and we also realize that to be pragmatic, that if this development is done right, it can complement the community. So, to that end, I have volumes more I can say, but I'd like to let the words speak for the pictures, and Mr. Raul Gowry's a prominent architect here in town who has worked with us. We took the initiative to actually take that plan site, this is a canned plan for a bunch of residential. Tim wants to talk about how the art base is out on the nose of it, but the reality of it is, it's mostly residential. So if you give Raul the opportunity to describe and show you some of the work that we've been doing, and we've shared this with the applicant, we'd like to introduce it to the broader community at large. Thank you.
Raul, are you going to be more than 3 minutes?
I'm going to do it real fast I can. It might be 3.5.
Okay.
All right, what we have is a little presentation. We have a little audio to show you, and then briefly, as fast as I can, I will go through the...
Raul, you need to be on a mic.
How do I get on a mic over there?
We're going to hand you one, or try to.
Hand me one. All right. Does he have to move over here? Is my 3 minutes up? No. All right. I'll get that going here. What we have presented tonight is a little movies put together about our thoughts. After that, we're going to go through quickly and more define what the movie means, how it meets the master plan, and how it meets the CSC code. So let me get this thing going here.
Outlined in the ETC survey conducted in November 2014. Our proposal will provide the public with maximum access to the river and river park. The focus of this presentation is the commercial mall service area that will welcome the public with services, restaurants, and businesses that the public will want to use. An inclusive area of social interaction will be the legacy. 50% of the parcel open as the public has asked for. That park could be ready for use this fall. 50% of the parcel dedicated to development. Opportunity to relocate Art Base, the Chamber, and to create a visitor center on the parcel and to free up Lions Park. Lively public serving mini walking mall to accommodate a diverse spectrum of businesses and provide a place and reason for people to come, stay, and explore Basalt. If you happen to be floating down the valley in a hot air balloon looking for a place to stop, here is the inviting scene you would see that would probably have you wanting to drop down for a closer look. RMI is to the right in the image, and to the left is the open park. The design of the gold medal station steps down from the 3 stories, which is about the same height as RMI, to 2 to 1 to the park. Driving in from Willits, people will experience a rising then lowering of buildings, beginning with the Roaring Fork Conservancy and ending with a single-story mall, then open park. You decide to land and have a closer look. That the half of the parcel to be developed be divided into 4 lots. Here is an option that would be all funded by the developer. The 2 end lots will be a public serving mini mall to invigorate the vitality of Basalt. Parking for the commercial walking mall will be handled by making more spaces available on 2 Rivers Road between Midland Spur and RMI. There is potential for about 4 to 8 small independent operators to relocate here. The spaces are small, lots of natural light. The next lot in, Lot 2, and the developer-funded option provides the potential on ground level for another 6 small independent operators to invigorate Basalt. Above those are 6 small 2-bedroom condos of about 1,000 square feet each. The lot closest to RMI will provide the short-term profit and economic boost needed for a developer to allow the rest of the project to move forward. The size limitation of the condos will ensure that they are not excessive in consuming the precious river park space. If the town purchases Lot 2, here is a sampling of some of the various development options that could be developed on the land to house art base, the chamber, and perhaps a visitor center. Who pays for all of this? Under option A, where town does not buy a parcel, no additional funds outflow from the Basalt General Fund is required. All parking that the code normally would require for 14,200 square feet of commercial use buildings proposed under that option is provided. Parking for the residential is on ground level, but contained under the top 2 floors of residential. There very well could be surplus parking above and beyond the demand that this proposal creates. Post, Parks Open Space and Trails, sales tax funds will be used to purchase 50% of parcel to become Open River Park. Under all other options presented will require the town or art base or some other entity purchasing parcel 2. The acquisition by the town of parcel 2 should be viewed as an exchange of assets or land banking. The town and or art base can then explore the many options. The price for parcel 2 is $573,000. Cost is based upon maximum build-out for each lot compared to the total. 2 other benefits of this proposal are Midland Spur easement and 2 Rivers Road will be deeded to the town to ensure that the use of Lions Park and the Recycle Center parcel have maximum flexibility and value to the town of Basalt in the future. Existing Basalt businesses can relocate on the mall when the eventual redevelopment of other parts of Basalt occurs. Other independent and public serving type tenants that we think would thrive here include health practitioners' offices, a yoga studio, a coffee shop, a few restaurants, and perhaps some micro businesses that may have some relationship to RMI and or the Roaring Fork Conservancy. Let's make Basalt a town where we are proud of the decisions we made today for tomorrow.
All right, thank you. I'll go quickly through the site plan so you
Rob,
can see.
you're over. You're already at 6 minutes.
Can I give him my time?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, I'll quickly go through the site plans here. For the most important thing that I'm trying to show you here. Oh, sorry. All right. The most important thing we're trying to demonstrate here is how it complies with the code in the zone that has been implemented on this property. As you can see, this is directly from the town master plan. We've all seen this before. Don't lose our small town character. Bring the rivers to the forefront of the town's identity. Promote vitality. The master plan amendment. Connect the town to the rivers. Preserve significant physical and visual access. Improve Lions Park. Allow density to drive revitalization, provided they're their destination. And I believe what we have to present to you does meet those. Okay. First site plan. There's going to be repetitive concepts here. We have multiple concepts. They're all intermingled, but a lot of things overlap. What's important here, as we said, dividing the property into 4 separate lots. What that does, it keeps potential residential and north-south access, eliminates a wall, eliminates an additional road through the property. But it also allows for a phased project, reduced infrastructure, save costs. It gives variety and variation instead of having one monolithic cookie cutter project. And it also has some flexibility. All right, starting in some of the other aspects. As you can see, still retain the mall here. Now we start coming into the art base. This can be handled several options. This is a 5,000 square foot footprint, but allows for some additional retail for revenue and has some additional units up above. Again, we have residential here. All the parking for residential is on site. What this does, as called out in the code, creates a vitality zone. That word has come up several times tonight. It connects, it has pedestrian connectivity, which is the goal area. It has a natural landscape that's desired. It has existing proposed uses, and it has the master plan compliance.
Well, it also allows the sun to pass through in between the buildings in this north-south orientation. so that it doesn't have a wall effect on Two Rivers Road, and it creates pathways multiple to get to the park.
Yeah, no, thank you,
Excuse
Ron,
me,
that's
Pam,
really.
are you timing? Are you timing? Okay.
The last thing, this goes with the open space as part of the concept. This provides, what do you call it, retail street level. It's open to the sky, which is called out in the code. It has direct access. As you can see, we have several access chutes going directly to the park.
Rolf, that was 3. That was 3 again.
Wait 2 more minutes.
All right. And so, provide with the appropriate ground cover and treatment. So we're really creating a space for vitality, creating an extension of downtown. It's based on the C2 uses that we have in the zone district now. So it does have the potential to create something very exciting. This also shows the visitor center relocating the caboose, forming a little plaza here with an arcade that's related to the Arts Center, if we go that direction.
And all the residential space is 1,400 square feet,
That's correct.
which is important instead of an allowance to 2,100.
This is our takeoff with the art base with some supplemental retail and additional possibly employee housing on top. Well, if we go quickly through some of the pictures, this shows them how the project steps down from RMI down to a one-story facade. This shows again the view from the river, the 3 to the 1 story. We have a view looking towards RMI on River Road. This is the Two Rivers elevation straight on. But if you look through a couple of these additional photos, it demonstrates what you want to see. You want to see the river. You want to see sky. This is directly out of what is in the code that has been written down. This is my last slide. Just another thing. Create some vitality, some interest, some scale to the existing downtown. That's it.
Thanks,
Thank
Joel.
you.
Could you submit that for the public record, please? Could you submit it to Pam for the public record?
Yeah.
So she doesn't have to try to imagine it in the minutes?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Other comments from the public? Do you really have 1 minute left? All right, okay.
It's all been done very well. I'm Jerry Twilliger. I live on Homestead Drive, and I am also one of the people who would like to see the town buy the parcel. I would like to see nothing whatsoever developed on this parcel except for park. That would make this whole parcel about the same size as the Sopris Park in Carbondale. Think of that. I don't like the current proposal. It provides a high wall along Two Rivers Road that blocks entirely the view of the river where it is proposed. And at 2,100 square feet, at $600 a square foot is what I heard Tim Belinsky say the other day. That will be homes going for $1.2 million. It does not fit the character of Basalt. Thank you.
Next.
For those who don't know me, my name's Ted Guy. I am one of those who believes this parcel should be developed. It is key to the river master plan, the refocus, the future development on our rivers, because our rivers make Basalt very, very special. I do not support rezoning. I think it should stay as C2. C2 limits residential to 25% of the buildup. So I think we need more commercial and less residential. But I do believe it needs to be developed. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Next. Yes, Mr. Kane?
Evening, Mayor, councilors. Appreciate the opportunity to appear before you. My name is Bill Kane. I'm the president of the board of the Art Base, and I'm here wearing my Art Base hat to talk to you about maybe a brief 3-minute history of the acquisition of the parcel and maybe suggest some direction forward. Also, I reside at 135 Riverside Drive, if that's important for the public record, so I do live in Basalt. In 2010, the town of Basalt, acting through its town council, acquired the Pan Fork Trailer Park. It was a 5.9 acre parcel. We've subsequently learned that some of that acreage actually resides under the main channel of the Roaring Fork River. But nevertheless, this came after an attempt in 2007 to acquire the Pan Fork. Jackie, I know, remembers it, worked, I think, on behalf of the bond issue, which went to the voters to acquire the property for $5.2 million. That effort did not succeed and failed by 10 votes. After the crushing recession of 08 and 09, we revisited the property with Renee Ritchie, the owner, and were able to negotiate a price of $3.2 million. In 2009, it was very difficult for municipalities or for anyone to raise capital. We had a dreadful, and I would argue kind of humanitarian issue on our hands with the Pan Fork. We had a water system that operated with thin-walled aluminum irrigation pipe that leaked. We had a sanitation system that no one could identify where the discharge was actually taking place, and yet this was 38 trailers residing on the banks of the Roaring Fork River. Finding investment capital in 09 was nigh on to an impossibility. We didn't know if we had a solvent banking system in 09. No one was loaning money for anything. We went to the markets, and we had a generous offer from CDC and George Stranahan, and we partnered. We put in $1.2 million. Stranahan put in $2 million of his own money to create a better living circumstance for 38, for the most part, Latino residents of our community who are being exploited and badly abused. We're living in substandard living conditions with inadequate utilities, with roads that couldn't be driven on. So the story goes on. Subsequently, CDC participated in financial assistance for relocation of many of those residents. So here we are 8 years later, and we're still frittering about what we're going to do with the property. I would say job one here is to pay CDC back and defend the honor and integrity of our community. So far, we were eager to take the money and close on the property in 10, but now, we're not there. At any rate, I would suggest that we at the Art Base, the Art Base mission statement is we foster creative expression within the visual arts for all ages and abilities, providing a base of operations for artists in the Roaring Fork Valley through education, exhibitions, and events that support and stimulate our community. This is an incredibly important opportunity. We have donors standing by to effect the vertical construction of this. No plan is perfect. This one isn't, but this is a sketch plan. Encourage Tim to work, and there are some clever ideas here that should be explored, but we'd suggest that you work with Mr. Belinsky and effect a workable plan and move this on to forward. Thank you very much.
Please respect the timer, folks, because there's a lot of you here, and we just don't want to step on the next person. Go ahead.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tina Shaw, and I've been in the Valley for 38 years, living, working as an art dealer, and raising our son. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees for the Art Base, and I'm also the co-chair of the Art Base Council with Jill Kaufman. I'd like to thank the town council, mayor, all of you for all that you've done and do for the town of Basalt and our community. I'm going to keep it brief, so I'm going to read this. The Art Base Board of Trustees and the entire staff provide a hearty endorsement for the program and vision submitted by Independence Ventures for the development of a portion of the CDC land on the Pan Fork property to include the donation of 7,000 square feet of free dirt to the Art Base. The Art Base New Building Committee has taken guidance for the current conceptual plan for the efforts of our town process, Downtown Area Citizens Commission, and extensive deliberations by the Basalt Planning and Zoning Commission. All efforts reflect the desire to accommodate an arts center that is complementary to the park plans and that is an integral part of our community. With a permanent home, our extremely successful program will be even more effective at bridging cultures and bringing people together. I truly believe that the art base has contributed significantly to the vitality of Basalt, and I look forward to working together to realize a permanent home for the art base. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the art base.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hello.
My name's Jill Kaufman, and I'm also part of the Art Base trustees. I'll just expand a little bit more on what Tina said. At the Art Base, we proudly showcase a diverse exhibition schedule featuring Colorado-based student, emerging, and established artists, focusing on solo show opportunities for artists living in the Roaring Fork Valley. With a new building, different from how it is now, our gallery space will be separate from the classrooms. The larger and welcoming gallery space will be open to the public Tuesday through Saturday and on Sunday with the market in the summers. Visiting the gallery is a great free activity for youth, families, and adults alike. In 2017, the Art Base's unique exhibitions represented 148 different artists with 10,095 visitors to the gallery. One of the highlights included an interactive mural created by the new immigrant students at Basalt High School that examined self and place, attracting 1,039 members of the local community and 547 local students. All exhibition material was translated to Spanish. Our vision is to be open and inclusive, a true community anchor, and welcoming aspect to the park and downtown core, and I fully support this development.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Honey. I'm a longtime resident and artist. I've been here since 1971. I've followed along with the art base from when it was the Wiley, starting at the community school. And we have grown. I'm on the board. We have grown. We have moved our education up 50% just in the last couple of years. So we are busting at the seams, and we're very in favor of the whole project here, and hopefully we can get a permanent home. Our education programs are outreach. They're everywhere. They're at the at-risk and underserved, teens, after-school programs, camp programs. We had a presence during the fires at the high school, which was very helpful to so many kids that were displaced for that period of time, very disruptive. You know, I should have written this whole thing down so I could have read it. Anyway, more space equals more programs, which to better serve the community, and education is our main focus. So thank you very much for indulging us.
Thanks, Kathy. I think we've got somebody coming up and.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Summers Moore. I'd like to thank you for your time and let you know that I am kind of a new kid on the block. I've just joined the Art Base board and the Art Base Council. I'm a board member at 5 Point Film, and I'm a Missouri Heights resident. I wrote these notes. I've been prepping. We've been working very hard to say something very clever. I don't know that you'll get that from me, although I am a very passionate artist, and I, this past winter, worked at the mentor program at the Art Base with a young student who I've asked to speak to you next about the Art Base, and I can't describe it to you here in front of this microphone, the power that it brought to this young woman and to the people around her. And I've also had many new dealings with the Art Base, and I can't say enough good things about it. I can't imagine that there are too many bad things that you would think of an Art Base, but in visualizing and trying to see a place that's young and old and things going on by a, natural setting, you cannot do any better than something like that. You really can. You can look for the great stores or the great this or the great that, but I think you would be doing yourself a great disservice without the arts. And they're prevalent in this valley. They're up and down the valley, but to have it in Basalt, have it be a hub in this area, I think you'd just be so foolish not to. The numbers I was given, I can ramble them off to you. They're big and huge and phenomenal. And the art base is just growing. I mean, it's this enthusiasm, and you might say, oh, it's a trend, it's going to come and go. It's not. I promise you that. The people that are there are devoted and behind it and just into it. And with those ramblings, I'd like to hand it to my mentee, Annika Chapman, and let her speak to you. Thank you very much.
Hello. My name is Annika Chapman, and last year I had the opportunity to participate in the Claudette Carter's Art Mentor Program. This program was one of the most amazing and meaningful opportunities I've ever had in my life. Through the art base, I was able to work with my mentor, Summers Moore, for 5 months, preparing me for an art show at the art base. Being in this program has meant the world to me. I learned a lot about myself as an artist through this program. My mentor and I worked together through the process of concept, creation, curation, and exhibit. I discovered and was influenced by many artists. I visited museums and galleries with my mentor. I met local artists, and I attended a painting class with Amy Beidelman at the art base. As my work evolved, so did I. I learned that art could be a platform to express not only beauty, but my thoughts and feelings about the world. Over the course of 5 months, I created 5 mixed media collages and had the amazing experience of having them exhibited at the art base. This summer, I also had the opportunity to take a collage and gouache class at Anderson Ranch, thanks to a scholarship I received through my participation in this program. I am now a senior at Roaring Fork High School. Most of my peers are preparing their college applications. I knew early that I wanted to go to art school. I applied early to the Savannah College of Art and Design, my first choice, and have already been accepted. Participating in the Claudette Carter Art Mentors program has been an important part in my acceptance and has helped me get into my dream school. I would like to thank all of you for supporting the art base. I am so thankful for the opportunity this place has given me.
Thank you for sharing. We're very proud of you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Abby Gerke, and I am also here for the Art Base. I'm the Youth Programs Manager, and I also live on Homestead Road. So I just wanted to be here in support of the river parcel submitted by Independent Ventures. And I wanted to talk mostly about the youth programming and the location and the ability with the new building and space and the opportunity that this would give us to grow our programming. The at-risk hours are 3 to 6 p.m. And at the art base, part of our mission is to reach these at-risk and underserved communities. And with this new space, it would allow us to reach more communities and have the ability to offer a digital lab, community classrooms, a multi-use events courtyard space, and a high-caliber exhibition space for Colorado-based artists. Our central location has been really advantageous to who we serve right now because we are able to meet the communities that we serve over at the elementary school and walk them there during these at-risk hours. Again, thank you for being here, and thank you for all you do for the town of Basalt. I recently moved here as well from Snowmass Village, and I love it here. And I also recently left my previous job to work for the art base, and so I really would like to grow here in Basalt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Council. I am not with Art Base. Anyways,
I want to comment to,
State your name.
oh, Trip Adams, I'm sorry, I'm a homeowner here, business owner here, and a commercial property owner here. Been here about 15, 16 years. This piece of property is, as you all well know, is a gift. It's a once-in-a-lifetime piece of property that's beautiful. I've been in development for over 45 years of my life as a career. I'm part of the RMI project and helped bring that through. To develop this piece of property at all is heartbreaking, and I'm a developer. And no offense to my colleagues over here, I understand when you give a piece of property to develop, this is what you do. You figure out how you're gonna make your money and how you're gonna get your biggest bang and your biggest buck out of it. It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity this council has, a gift of a piece of property that somehow you guys can't figure out how to purchase this. And I loved what everybody said earlier about bringing on consultants that could help plan the master plan outside of this valley, get some fresh insight on this. The dreamers, the concept, something that can be beautifully that can happen to this piece of property. But to develop it and put more density on it, there's nothing in this proposal other than it's a residential piece of property. It doesn't serve our community. I really, really want to express, I hope you guys could look outside the box and find a way to do something other than develop this piece of property. You guys did a really good job removing people from this piece of property out of harm's way. To put them back in harm's way is the definition of insanity. I truly can't figure this one out. But I just want to say, to develop something so beautiful is almost sacrilegious right now. And it breaks my heart to see something so beautiful that we're going to put massive development in it just because we need to pay the bill versus how can we really look at this, bring in the right consultants, dream big, and do something that this property can really bestow upon this town for my kids, my grandkids, and the future generations, so they don't look at this and go, what the hell were they thinking? We don't have this anymore. Because once you put it up, there's no taking it back. So thank you for all your input and everything you guys do, but this is a gift. And from being a developer, I got to say, this is hard for me to do, but do the right thing here. Really reach deep and figure out how to be the most creative thing you can put on this piece of property. It's not for residential. It's to service the people of this community. Thank you for your listening to me.
Thanks, Trip. Yes, I see a hand, but no face. Okay, go on now.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm Margot Pendleton. I live in Holland Hills, but I consider Basalt my home. And I've just been sitting here listening to all this stuff, trying to keep an open mind. For me, it's sometimes very hard. I believe that Tim has the best interests at heart. He's a local who has done his best to help develop this property. But again, I feel like we're rushing. I feel like Lowe's was one thing, and then the next person came along with Tim. Now we saw somebody else who has an idea how we can make this park nice. But I listened to the people doing the Basalt Master Plan tonight, and I thought, geez, this is where we should be going. And I heard people talking about getting together and how do we make this the right place? I started thinking, what if we just developed that thing and somebody came in and said, what the hell did you do that for? You got the cart before the horse. And I agree with what was just said. You know, I feel like we're in a panic mode to get something done and pay for the damn land. And I think that's crazy. If we're gonna have a Basalt Master Plan and get this thing figured out, and we're talking about affordable housing, we're talking about bringing young kids, like, I don't remember his name on the P&Z that said, my kid doesn't have a place to live, they don't have anything. I got a 26-year-old that lives with me, and he considers downtown Basalt like the old folks' home, and he goes over to Elgibel. I'm sorry, but walk around in the bars at night and take a look. That's what you're seeing. And are we going to change this atmosphere? If we build residential housing for $1.2 million, that is not going to attract the young people. It's gonna attract people like Aspen. I think we should not rezone this property for residential if we can come up with some way to put some affordable housing, something, building thing in increments, but the best thing I'd like to do is for the town to buy the land till we figure out where we can go. You can always sell it back to somebody, you can always do something else with it, but I feel we're in a rush, and we should take a breath and stand back and find out what else we could do. If we're gonna have an entrance to Basalt coming into this town, you come over that bridge, and if you see that whole park, you're gonna go, wow. Instead of this great big wall over here, and I would like, if you're gonna decide on it, put some blocks up here, put a string up and show you how big it's gonna be. I think you'd be shocked. Personally, I think, as I said, we got the cart before the horse. If we're gonna redevelop and we want an entrance to Basalt, not having this big development there. And I agree the art base should be taken care of, and the visitor center, no problem, build something over there on that.
Thank you, Margot.
Okay, thanks, sorry.
It's okay. Yes.
Steve Chase, hi, everybody. I thought I would bring a different perspective than my typical message. And I'll share with you that for the last month, I've been canvassing Greater Basalt for the candidacies throughout the state of Colorado. And it's quite interesting because one of the things that's been talked about is if whatever is built there is too big, it's going to bring in only rich people, and they're going to use it as second homes. Well, the message that I got from canvassing the top of the hill here, Willits, Blue Lake, and Elk Run, was that probably everyone in the room has a neighbor who doesn't own their unit. It's either a rental unit or it's a second home. It's the nature of the beast. In my neighborhood, both my neighbors are second homes, and they rarely live there. We can't control, by virtue of how large we allow the units to be, whatever they happen to be, whether it's with your project or with Tim's project, we can't make up how the demographics is going to lie. Whether people are actually going to live there full time, that's not going to happen, because I can tell you that after a month of canvassing all these neighborhoods, I don't know specifically what the demographics is regarding second homeowners, but I can assure you that it's probably, I'm going to say 35 or 40% of Greater Basalt is occupied by second homeowners. And it doesn't matter how much the homes are, from $2.5 million to $400,000. There are second homeowners in all of those things. And I think that's enough for tonight. You know the rest of my story. So.
Thanks, Steve. Any more? Going, okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sam Johnson. I live in River Cove. Been there for about 20 years, and it's a great spot. I look across the river to Riverwalk. The whole top floor of that development is dark, Steve said, probably 60 to 70% of the time. My neighbors on each side of my home, I get a lot of privacy because they're only here less than 20% of the time. So, yes, I think Basalt does have a lot of second homeowners because it's such a lovely place to come, great place to come out of the heat of Texas, different things like that. But I don't think we want to add that, because that doesn't add vitality to the project as proposed with such a large residential development. I think Ted Guy is approached it pretty well, saying, don't rezone it to allow that type of density as far as residential, and keep it commercial. Let's bring the vitality back into town. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Hi, my name is Vicki Johnson, and I'm in River Cove.
I know.
Been here 20 years, been in the valley a lot longer. Didn't really plan on talking, but I just wanted to throw in there, I agree and disagree with things that have been said. I am absolutely opposed to any housing on that project. We have other options. Is it the Merino project where the recycle was? I don't know if the town could ever work with anything like that, but I agree with Sam. All commercial if there's going to be any development. Tim's project had a coffee shop on Two Rivers Road, not on the beautiful river looking at Sopris, on the Two Rivers Road, and all these other places went back by the river. So, I mean, I thought maybe it wouldn't be bad to have another restaurant on the river. You know, I love Riverside Grill. Everybody I have visit loves to go sit on that river. Some type of place like that, but not housing. We didn't pay to move all those people for somebody to come in and make money building for them. And the rest is redundant because it's been said, but thanks for listening to us. And one more thing, I don't really think that this really follows the Our Town, plan that we had one of the meetings at our house, and there were all the drawings everywhere, and it was so exciting looking at the pictures and the ideas, and none of that has been brought up in the plans. And my last thing just is a question. Has this been opened up to other developers that have no special interest, no connection to the town, just great ideas? Has it ever been put out like that? That's all. Thank you.
Well, I'll just address that one really quickly. Unless the town owns the property, we are unable to just let other developers go to somebody else's property, just like they couldn't go to your house and say, we're gonna take Sam's house down and build something else that we want. So just FYI, we don't own the property, somebody else does.
So let's buy it.
All right,
And we
thanks.
do.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
You guys have heard me talk before, but Chris Matera, Basalt Chamber of Commerce. I'll keep it short because it's already being a long night. From the Chamber's perspective, we're excited for the opportunity of a permanent home. You've all heard me describe our current work conditions, and I think a lot of you have an understanding of where we would like to go as a chamber. And we're sort of handicapped by the fact of our office. People don't completely take us seriously. We're great if we're just a visitor center for anything else we're going to do. Kind of like what Auden said, let's think bigger. So this would give us a chance at a permanent home similar to the art base. It is a central location. I can't really think of a better place to put us, where we have the access to both our businesses, our residents, and visitors. I feel like some people question how the chamber brings vitality. That's kind of my job. But part of that, just to give you an anecdotal story, we have tourists coming in all summer long trying to get information. Where do I go to this? What's a good restaurant? What's a trail I can hike? I'll go back to the post comment from earlier. But we just went through ski pass season, and half of our membership came through our doors to get ski passes. That's like 230 people coming through to get ski passes. Now, that's in our location or where we are. Imagine if we were in a different place where they could go and check out more stores. So to me, that's guaranteed foot traffic in the end of August, September, as some of our seasonality is starting to wane. In general, we are the welcoming face of the communities and visitors. Earlier this evening when we talked about the master plan of, what does Basalt want to be? We are part of that equation as well, and putting us in a more visible, accessible location would be beneficial for us. And I don't think many people could disagree with the fact that we are community serving. So that is all.
Thanks again, Chris. Any last comments? Okay, we will close public hearing at 8:15 and go to council comments and discussion. And you saying? Yes,
I'll kick it off. So, first, thank you, Tim, for how you approached this in your comments at the August meeting, which is, hey, this is a proposal, we're gonna work on it. Something's gonna happen there, and you're open to that conversation. So my comments are in the spirit of that. Couple other preliminary notes. You know, this isn't about the art base. And so I was a little rattled by all the comments from the art base. The art base is awesome and I love it, and I'll more than happily look at a piece of the 50% park donated by the town that could go to art base. It's not about the chamber either. We can find a place for the chamber. It's vital. I support it. It's important. But it's in some ways a red herring to talk about art base. I mean, would we put in a factory in town to get art base? Would we, you know, it's just not, this is about the development. We have to keep focused on the development. The other thing is that a number of people that I know and respect, Jerry, Tripp, Royal, said, hey, I wish it were all park. I'm not that guy. I just don't think it's the appropriate use of in-town development where there should be density. And if you look at the park now, it's empty. So we're gonna add even more space to that park to complement all the space across the river, to complement all the other open space, and we're surrounded by open space and wilderness. It doesn't make sense from a planning perspective. So I'm not your guy if you want all park. I think this parcel needs to be discussed in the context of what do we want as a town, and then what do we need to give up to the developer to allow that to happen. You know, we don't care about Trader Joe's or a boutique hotel. What we need is in part, but not only, housing that isn't luxury, commercial vitality of some sort, and community benefit that's real. I think the current proposal has limited value to the town for many of the reasons people brought up. When I say community benefit needs to be real, I'll point out that Takaw made the same vision and promises that Art Base is making, and it doesn't exist yet, and it may never exist. It was 16 years now, and we still don't have Takaw. So giving land without other support is like handing an empty binder to your teacher and asking for an A. That's not community benefit. There's gonna have to be more of it. There's gonna have to be more to it if the town is gonna give development rights and change zoning and so forth. So another point, I don't believe a nonprofit can anchor this parcel, this park. The town itself has to be an anchor. That's why I've been a proponent of development happening on the corner. I know that's a dead issue, but any urban planner would say the corner should be developed. But look at RMI, really successful nonprofit, hardly an anchor for that parcel. Look at Roaring Fork Conservancy, awesome, love them, we supported them, not an anchor. Housing, what happened to the concept of replacement housing? I don't even know what we're going from to, but it's something like 400 to 6 or 16 or whatever the massive number is. You know, the trailer park was transit-oriented affordable housing. How will we ever get those beds back? And we know that issue for the community. So, you know, the town is gonna buy this parcel of land, build the amenities, and donate our sunken costs for this development. That's just taxpayer-funded second home development. We have to get what we want out of this and not subsidize this development. Last point is, could any of us on council go to some of the people who were displaced from their trailers and say, here's what we're doing for you? It's $1.2 million, it's $800,000. There's 6 affordable housing units. It just isn't a good plan. So again, these are the problems I see with it. I do think that parcel should be developed. I think there were some great ideas in the proposal you gentlemen brought up, but we're gonna have to workshop this to get it better. We're gonna have to give something to the developer. You need to be able to make a profit on it. That's totally fine. But what would work? On this parcel we've described, the half of CDC, dense, vertical, smaller housing, a good portion of the housing deed restricted, some of it free market but smaller. you know, an actual cafe of some, or bar of some reasonable size. And again, I don't know, those things might not work. I'm just trying to be creative here. Co-working space, a combination of the chamber and town hall space that's partly built by the developer. And what will we give in return? I propose we give density, added density. We allow you to go up further so you can make money on housing so we can get what we want. What about parking assistance? What if I fully support some sort of parking assistance, either building a parking garage or passing a TIF to help make it possible on that site. The bottom line is this is not a creative development. There's nothing wrong with it. It's what makes sense to propose if you were trying to fire a shot across the bow of town council. But let's work together. An idea that I think would fly is there's so many creative designers out there. Let's work with a planner. Let's have the town offer to partially fund that, and let's come up with something that's creative and vibrant and unique and that none of us has ever thought of, and that looks kind of like that picture in its vision and aspiration. So that's all I got.
Excellent, thank you.
Thanks,
Are you next?
I don't know.
Go
I
ahead.
can be.
Go ahead.
Tim, thanks very much for the proposal. It took a lot of courage after all the water that's flowed beneath the bridge. I guess I'm going to frame my comments from a little bit more general perspective and embrace certain elements of the program. I, like many, am very fond of the arts. I would disagree with Auden on the value of Takal. I think Takal is a wonderful anchor for musical, dramatic, and other culture in Willits, and I think the art space could perform that same function here. I would also diverge in saying that the art space can't be an anchor. If you look at the Guggenheim in Bilbao, you look at the Whitney downtown, these are anchors for much broader neighborhood redevelopment that has been very persuasive and has brought millions of tourists and billions of dollars to each of those two communities. So again, in the context of our scope, I think that the art space is a very great contribution to the parcel. I myself, frankly, don't have a strong opinion on the residential. I am very conscious, however, that in the variety of surveys that we've done, people have responded in a variety of ways. In the Our Town survey, people did request smaller housing, smaller units that would be affordable for the people who've spoken here and for their kids who they are interested to have live here. I think it is in our interest to promote primary home ownership and discourage, to the extent that we can through the market, the purchase or acquisition of these homes as secondary homes. But I'm not hostile to this notion. I'd also look to Ted Guy's comment. If C2 zoning restricts residential to 25%, you can either cap the residential or expand the footprint. So if residential, as I understand, is the way that money can be made, expand the footprint, which gets to the question of challenging the orthodoxy of the 1.3 or 50% of the parcel being dedicated to pure open space. I would agree from an urban planning perspective, that seems to me, by aggregating and consolidating all development on the western side of the parcel, you're effectively dividing or divorcing commercial vitality from the Midland core. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm not going to quibble with the amount of property, whether it's 1.3 acres between buildings or amongst buildings set aside in a different way. I have no basis to judge whether 1.3 is the right number or the wrong number. What I do suspect is that the configuration, grouping things on the western side, creating a dark space that separates the restaurant, the art space, what might be the chamber from the rest of town, just doesn't seem logical to me. So I question the 1.3 acres in general. We've also been through a number of referenda. 2016, the public voted not to buy the land. So what are we going to buy the land with? I know the notion of posts funds has been raised, but I don't think that we've decided on that. So the assumption that the town wants or will buy the land for whatever price is probably putting the cart before the horse. But I think also that the suggestion that we want to ensure that the parcel develops in a manner that is whatever, that it occurs at a pace that delivers the vitality we want. I guess what I'm getting to is the notion that the chamber needs to be located there. I'm a member of the chamber. I love what Chris is doing and what the board has done. I'm not convinced that it has to be on that parcel of land, and I just have to wonder, when the art space vacates its current space, why the chamber can't occupy the pre-existing art space and save an awful lot of money and save square footage on the parcel for commercial development or office space. I believe from conversations with Ryan, who has had conversations with others in the community, that there may be commercial interests, profit and nonprofit, that might be willing to entertain location on that parcel. I'd have to refer you to him, but those possibilities can and should be explored to bring the vitality, which gets me back to the basic point of what the community has requested. The Midland shop owners, without exception, said that they want vitality, they want foot traffic, they want more eyes, they want more shoppers when I was campaigning. That is basically what the survey also concluded. The Our Town survey concludes that they want restaurants, they do want a boutique hotel, and here too, I would probably digress and suggest, if we look at Junction, if we look at Steamboat, and my favorite, Buena Vista, there are boutique hotels in all of these communities, and they are destinations. So, as James said, we want this to become a destination, and if you have a hotel, it will bring people. It is also true that, to some degree, greater or lesser, the RMI, Roaring Fork Conservancy, and perhaps others, conceived their plans based upon the notion of holding seminars, conferences, inviting big thinking people to our town to have their congresses and fora. And now they can't do that. They are forced to lodge their participants either in Aspen or down at the Element. And so the economics I have to leave to the experts, frankly. But I've seen that a 22-room hotel in Buena Vista can generate sufficient revenue to finance a now 60-room hotel, and they are profitable. And I know, again, I'm confident that where there is a will, we can find a way. So again, I guess just to wrap up, I would question some of the assumptions, about the property and, how that's divided, and perhaps explore some other assignment of elements, where you put the buildings and how big the buildings are. And, as Auden and I have discussed at length, we are big fans of density, and density does bring the kind of vitality, the traffic, that will support the needs, interests, and desires expressed to me by every shop owner on Midland and by others. And so I hope that that's helpful.
Gary, Jim?
I guess I'll go. Thank you, Tim, for at least bringing this to a discussion. And, we've been at this a really long time, and we're trying to work on what is the best compromise for this property, because, I was a big proponent of the time of trying to create as much park as possible. However, when the vote failed, I listened to the people and really thought about ways to compromise. And when we were talking about zoning and we got into the community serving zone district, I really was like, we had the uses, and the uses aligned with the Our Town survey. And to me, the amount of residential is just not gonna work. It's just way too much, and to me, the anchor of this property is the residential, and that to me is not what, the community survey talked about, is not what our town planning talked about, And so trying to transfer this to a community serving district with the amount of residential is definitely a non-starter. But could we look bigger and broader? Merino Park is there. The town parcel that we're on right now is here. If there's a way to, work with you as a developer to really look bigger and look at, ways to house more people, create density, but where density is appropriate. Because I do not agree that this property is where we put density. I look at a property straight across right there that we work through the our town planning process and that we work to zone with pretty huge amount of density, and it's right there. And so, I'm not going to be very supportive of a whole lot of density. I think you guys listen to that, and I think really truly you guys are keeping it at a scale that seems workable, but it's got to change pretty significantly to more community serving. I love the art base. I've always been a huge supporter of the art base. The chamber, I really love what the chamber's doing. I kind of agree with Bill on that one. It's like, if we could find ways and play with the parcels, the art base, if it moves out of there, could the chamber be in there? Or maybe the chamber can be located. Because if you look at what has been done, the Roaring Fork Conservancy, RMI, and now this property as to me, those are community servings, and I do agree kind of with Bill, they kind of provide anchors in a different way. The Roaring Fork Conservancy gets our kids over there and to start really participating with the park. And RMI is a global think tank that brings some of the best minds in the world in sustainability to this area. And so, in the end, I don't want to go on waxing because I really believe that it's pretty clear to me that we need to, if you want to work with us, we really I would like to see some significant change and really try to find ways, maybe we do some more affordable housing on Merino. What do we do with this property here? Can we put housing on this property here? I don't want to go too far away from all the work we did back in the day on the V and realigning of buildings. I could potentially see it, but I'm gonna be pretty adamant supporter of a whole lot of view plane and a whole lot of park and ways to partner with the developer to be able to find a way to make some development on this property work, but make it community serving. I watched that video from Raul, and it's just another take on it. To me, it had more community serving elements to it, and so can we work together to make that happen? Because in the end, I want CDC to be whole. I want this to have some solution. I am not in a rush to make that solution, but I do want to see if we can find a solution to it, and if we can all work together on it. I think that would be, a huge win for the town. The only other one that I wanted to say was looking at, the way we've been working we just react to your proposal. And so now that there's a proposal out there, it'd be great if we could find a way, there was some great ideas of ways we can share resources to come up with a better solution. And so I'd love to see us potentially do that. So, thanks.
Thanks, Gary. Jennifer.
Kudos for the very first formal development proposal. Okay, that's
It is.
Yes, it is. Okay, that's a recognition. And with that, I am fully on board for the consideration of an urban design firm, and not focusing what is least expensive driving the development, having somewhat of an out-of-valley expert. Something that improves upon Willits. Willits is a lucrative place that many people live. Lucrative for the town from the tax revenues, but from a functionality standpoint and aesthetic standpoint, it's getting a little concerning to consider that sort of aesthetic and density right here on the river. We have previous developments like that are not so fantastic, that are walls to our rivers. And so it's very important to consider with the current proposal that there are not enough view planes through to the river. I am in agreement with the development being on the west side of the property, and when we're talking about code amendments to allow free market residential use on the property, hey, that's the trade point of Merino Park and, is this Ponderosa? Lions. Yeah, Merino and Lions. So keep that in mind. And I do feel that the Basalt River Park is not empty. There is, when you came originally, Tim, you talked about myths, and you made a list of, I want to say 20 myths. And the antonym of a myth is a fact. It's nonfiction, it's truth, it's certainty and reality. And what is a fact is that there is big potential in basalt. And with the Mid-Valley expanding, this river parcel, the Roaring Fork Conservancy, the RMI, the campus that is being created there, the fact that Roaring Fork CDC owns the property, to recognize that it has a lot of potential, and that with the Mid-Valley expanding, tree farm, etc., this is a very valuable and core heart part of our community. And high-end residential, that's a no-go. That is a deal breaker. And I will not go against the previous work that we have done. This community has been so clear. The blowback would be astounding if we put a 4-story building in the Big V. Just, no, not gonna fly.
We're not proposing that.
Exactly, but other counselors
Oh, I see.
have suggested, hey, bring us a proposal with that. I'm saying, no, it's not, I'm not going to be behind that, and I know that there's a lot of citizens that are not. A question that I have going back to, that staff could bring back on the next iteration, is with the CSC zoning, what is the square footage? For some reason in there, I have this in my mind that 6,500 square feet is what is required for the art base?
For the anchor use.
For the anchor use.
Mhm.
Okay.
Isn't that correct, James?
That's correct.
Yep.
Okay, so 6,500 square feet, I hear that the art base needs more space, but I want to bring the point up that I don't feel, just as Auden mentioned, that that is necessarily an anchor. And for 6,500 square feet, that one just doesn't pencil out for me. And yeah, we want to keep dancing with you. I recognize that you are a local, that you came forth with the first real formal proposal. You have a stake in this community. You have a reputation. That is very valuable. And let's keep working together. There are incredible other partners out there, and we are happy to go to dinner and have all these people at the table to hash this out. Examples of going to Breckenridge and seeing the affordable housing developments that have occurred there. There's so many incredible opportunities that have occurred in our other neighborhoods, and the current proposal just lacks the magic. And so we're ready to add some ingredients and work together.
Thank you. Okay. This is kind of where I've always been, and I am still here, which is this parcel is either going to be a game changer or it's not at all going to be a game changer. We're going to put something over there, and downtown Basalt is going to be just like it is right now, with 40% of the houses with people in them 20% of the time, and I don't want to see that. My second big thing on this parcel is, for me, why I do this job is for full-time locals. That is who I work for. I don't work for tourists. I don't work for visitors unless they happen to be visiting, full-time locals, and that's who I work for. And that's what this needs to address and does not. It does not address it, but I think it could, to agree with Auden on many of the things, is that I also don't believe that a nonprofit is necessarily the anchor that we want over there. Takah's anchor is Whole Foods. It's not Takah, it's Whole Foods. That's the anchor over there. I don't want Whole Foods over here. Don't want Whole Foods over here. I think we need some affordable housing, but not high density. I agree with Gary on that. I don't think this parcel is really meant for that. If we want it to be the core and heart of this mid-valley and our town, I don't want it to be high density. Residential, I think we're missing some of the things we talked about from the very beginning, like a real beer garden or a real place for people to come. And I'm not saying that should be the anchor. And speaking of the anchor use having to be X amount of square feet, we can change that just like we can change anything else in the zoning, or we can bring it into something else. The anchor can be something else, doesn't have to be that. I would love to see design, better design. I mean, I, didn't get a real grip on the presentation that was brought in, but I see the potential there as being more small town, more what we've been waiting for. And I also agree with Gary. We have waited this long and we can wait longer. And one of the things I do ask myself is, are we asking for something that a for-profit developer can do? We need to see that. I mean, I know that the number one goal for the developer, any developer, is to make the most money that you can. But that is not my goal. My goal is not to make money for a developer. So I say, squeeze this and try to make it look like a town. Try to make it look like a town. And if the numbers don't crunch, and we come back and the Bruce Kimmel or whoever says, sorry, you can't get any private sector guy to do this, then we need to regroup and say, do we need to buy this, make half a park, bring in a designer, ask for people to submit proposals that include the art base and whoever else we want in there. I do have in my mind, is this possible? Is it possible to get what we want from a for-profit developer? Because we are a little ways away from seeing that right now. So I say, work it, bring it back and see if, because most of what we're saying is similar up here. I mean, it's not exactly, you couldn't write one sentence and say the Basalt Council thinks this, but I think a lot of what we're saying is the same, and that is, we want a community development over there. Or quite honestly, we'll wait until we get one. So anyway, I will say again, thank you for having the wherewithal to submit something, because this is tough. This is very tough stuff, but we gotta have the art base included in this. We know that, even though, as Auden said, it is not really, for me, an anchor use. I want it there. I think we all are very proud of the art base and what it brings to our community. So, having said all that, I will stop and say, I hope we gave you some direction. If not, we can work back through Ryan individually to clarify anything. We can't be talking directly anymore, but we can work through Ryan, and I suggest that maybe we do some more of that.
Jackie, can I make
Yes, sir.
one? It might be worthwhile for Ryan to consolidate some of this, maybe.
Yeah.
But there's a contradiction here in the comments, which is that we want certain things that are community serving, but if we're gonna enable that, we have to allow something. And it's either density, it's residential, it's some level of high-end residential, it's something. So what I heard from over there, wasn't gonna enable any for-profit development. So the question is, what are you guys willing to give up? What level of density or residential or whatever to enable the kinds of things that we all want? And if that's not possible, I think that this isn't gonna fly. You know, so what I'd like to see is we come to some consensus on what we're willing to offer up. Like if they're not the votes there to do density or to do residential that pays for the art base or whatever, it just doesn't, we shouldn't pursue this.
Well, I think one of the things that hasn't happened yet because the applicant isn't in a place where they want to move forward, which is a pro forma of some kind. So what if you look at a pro forma that looks a little bit at the citizen presentation and looks a little bit at something like this to see what it is. We have, one of the things, and I agree with Gary and Jan, is that, you know, we're buying less, the way it's set up now, we're buying less as park than we were before. So we want more. We want half of that parcel, and we always have wanted half of that parcel since councils ago. So now you would be getting less money from the town, number one, just in that area, just because it's slopped over into the V now. So that's one place, but I don't think we're gonna sit here and say, when we don't have pro formas in front of us and we don't have designers in front of us, what we have to give up, because we don't know. We don't know how much money is built in there. We don't know what the profit is. I don't.
Well, and I also offered up the
Yeah,
potential
Marino.
for this
Right.
and Marino.
Yeah, true.
So we own those pieces of land. There's, you know, there's potential there. So, you know, what can we do with adding into those two pieces? Could that be? Because honestly, I'm not, you know, I'd said what I wasn't gonna give up. Not gonna give up a ton of residential on the property. I mean, you know, the other proposal had a smaller amount of residential and affordable. Can I live with some of that? Maybe. Getting to Jackie's point, show me some numbers and try to work with that, because these pieces of land have value. And when you add that value to this project, something could potentially happen. So that, I thought I was offering up things that could potentially entice that, and not just say, no, change.
Jerry, what do you mean by the Lions Park part? I know where Marino is, but I don't understand what you
sitting
mean by
This is-
Lions
This is
Park.
Lions.
Well, what do you mean by
I
offering
don't know what I
it?
mean by it. I mean, you know, when we looked at the overall our town planning,
Yeah.
part of Lions Park could be development. Art Base was looking at a piece of this to potentially redevelop that area. And so, Town Hall, I mean, this is not the greatest place to have public meetings. So,
No, it's
you
not.
know, if we can move things around and we
Okay.
can play with things, I'm open to the bigger vision of what these three parcels could do together. We can't include that one, we don't have a developer, we don't have the property owners on board with that. I really love that the master planning is thinking about that in the future and trying to entice a vision so we can entice some developers in the future. But right now, what we have control over is you guys control the CDC, we control these two parcels. What can we do with them all to, you know, create this incredible community-serving vitality, you know, area? And so that's why I was offering up
Okay.
all of that.
And Bill's got something, just one second, Bill's got something, but I just wanted to say really quickly, I think what we're getting at is, we can't bargain blindly. We know what we've got, but we don't know what your profit numbers are, we don't know anything about what you're doing and what your profit looks like. So we just need to find all that out and what we have available. Let's see, let me let him go.
I just want to respond to the pro forma piece. I think we need to be a little bit careful with asking the developer to develop a pro forma on somebody else's proposal.
Right, we would have to do that, that would be ours.
The other thing is, it's going to continue to be a moving target until this council agrees with some of the basic uses and the path forward. We can spend thousands, tens of thousands of dollars having that done, and I don't know at this point that that's the best use of our resources. I think that it's probably more advantageous for this council to discuss what elements work, and then we can start to get into, kind of honing it down with that finance piece. We have to get there, obviously. Staff understands that. That's an expectation. But I would just offer that that could be a little bit of a slippery
That's
slope.
perfect, because we just can't talk trading real estate until we know what the numbers really are. Bill?
Well, I think what Ryan said is we need to know what the
Bill,
uses are.
I called on Bill, okay? Bill.
Okay, sorry. Again, I would suggest that, the notion of potentially recruiting someone to come in and design, that's fine. But if we are intransigent on any point of the design, then I don't see much reason to spend any money. So if, Jen, as you say, you're convinced that the town is completely in favor of 50% or 1.3 acres being dedicated to a V, which would completely restrict the ability of a designer to design, then frankly, I think we're going to come back to where we are right now. I would prefer to go into this with much more of an open mind and look to the best thinking in urban design and contemporary urban planning to help us guide whether or not it's 1.3 or something else, or whether it's 0 with other view sheds. Otherwise, frankly, I see no reason to spend any amount of money if you've already made up your mind. I guess the other part of it, though, is, I will just add my own perspective. The notion of the town buying the property seems moot for two reasons. One, the town's already voted against this. Two, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan, correct me, it is inconsistent with Colorado statute and constitution for a public entity to speculate on private development. So for the town to buy the property for the purpose of speculating on private development, that would not be consistent with Colorado law. I may be wrong there, but that's my understanding. And if it's not law, I would oppose crowding out the private sector with public sector money. That's not what we're here to do. To spend public money, taxpayer money, speculating on real estate is just not our job.
Michael?
Can I?
Yes.
I'm Michael McVoy. I'm board president of the CDC. I believe I could almost safely say, with one or two exceptions, Susan and Jackie, I'm the only person in this room who's been 100% involved with this for 8 years. And as I think Bill came, Bill and I worked a lot to get this project put together back in 2010, and actually we ended up closing on it in 2011. But I just have to express that at this point, what I have heard over 8 years is constant rehashing and constant division. Auden, you actually referred to your side of the council table and this side of the council table. I have heard we want to be able to bring in other developers. We've worked with 4 developers, and it's the landowner that owns the property, and our costs are going up every single day. And not to be disrespectful, but to say that there's no rush, I guarantee you we are burned out. We started this project trying to be 100% supportive of the town, to work with the town, to bring the town what the town wanted. We have numerous times tried to do exactly what we were told the town did want, and every time what happens is Basalt ends up saying no. It may be council, it may be the public, it was the vote to buy the property. There's huge disinformation, misinformation. I mean, this property isn't in the floodplain. The dollars that the town actually sunk into our property are minimal compared to the numbers that are out there. There's so many pieces of this that, to me, are deeply frustrating. And while I understand that there may be huge conflicts, what I'd like to do is challenge you, the council, the staff, the town, to take everything you've heard for the last 8 years, don't keep trying to bring in more ideas. You have had over 600 proposals under the Our Town process. And quite honestly, what has happened in this entire process is that everybody in this town has come to the conclusion that they have the right to design our property. Our property. We own this property. We're a private property owner. And we're a nonprofit. We want to make 0 pennies after we cover our costs. We never have wanted to make a penny. We've been completely cooperative. We are so grateful that Tim was willing to step forward and try to actually submit a proposal, because up until now, every developer hasn't even been willing to spend the money and the time to submit it, because it became clear to them that nothing was going to happen. I would actually encourage you, the town, to get together in a retreat, bring in your urban planner or whoever you want to do, have a complete summary of everything the public has said, because I don't think I've heard a new idea in 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 or 6. I mean, all these ideas have been here this entire time. We were told bring in a hotel, then we were told don't bring in a hotel. We brought a hotel proposal and it got ran out of here. It's so frustrating to watch this community talk about its ideals but not be able to accomplish them. And we are willing, Tim is willing, we are completely willing to try and work with you, but there is no way we can keep bringing things back that are just going to end up being split and have the public turn out and some people opposed and some people in favor. This process is not working. And I would encourage you, town council, to take leadership. I've often said, quite honestly, that the one thing this town is lacking is leadership. You try and create consensus, but the reality is this town is not capable of accomplishing a consensus. What happens is a good idea loses by 10 votes or 20 votes, because there's always a few more people willing to turn out and shoot it down than are willing to support it. And I personally don't see that that's changing. But I think you, the council, challenge you to take leadership and tell us what all of this comment, everything that we've heard, give us what you want. Give us the criteria that you want. There's no point in us presenting more things for you to say, no, that's not what you wanted. We thought this was, again, what you wanted. We're a C2 zoning. We have 150,000 square foot development proposal, and the town in the process has reduced that to 55,000 square feet. Auden, we would love to do more development.
Yeah, so let us respond to that, because I agree with much of what you said. I think we got what you're saying.
Okay.
Kent, shall we? First, this isn't a particularly divided council. I feel comfortable enough to say you guys, because that was what the conversation was happening. This is a very cordial group. There's all kinds of overlap among all of us. We just had a retreat. It's not a divided group. I will completely agree with you over frustration, but also it's a bad process. Basically, you guess at what you think we want. We come back and give some vague ideas, and then you have to guess again, and it's bad. And what I would love, and I don't even know if this is legally possible, a lot of this is not that there's dysfunction, it's that this process is a terrible process. So what I would like to do, and maybe it's not even possible, I would like to have a public workshop where we all were in the room and we said, and we had a third-party designer, and you guys tell me if this is even possible, a third-party designer that could help us with ideas that would mesh our desires, because the truth is we have a lot of things we all want in common. I just made a short list of it here. One, we already all said we want to work together. We appreciate your coming here with an open mind. We want to make CDC whole. We know this has been terrible for you guys. We love Art Base and we want a space for it. It could be elsewhere in the town. We want the chamber to have a place. We want the developer to make some amount of money. That's got to be part of it, or it won't happen at all. We want affordable housing. We have various parcels we could throw into the mix. I believe we're willing to participate financially in parking. I can't speak for everyone, but I think that's the sense. and we want generally this parcel to be public serving. So if there's some, like, could we say enough is enough with the way towns work? Could we figure out, Jeff, some legal way to have this happen? If we have to hash it out in public in a work session and it's messy and horrible, great, let's do it. But at this rate, I think you're right, we'll never get through this. And again, it's not necessarily because people are all divided, it's partly process.
I think that's a good idea. Can we, let's have Jen go. Go, Jen.
Michael, I'm with you, and we already have done this. We did our town planning. We have had all these public forums. We as a council spent a lot of time coming up with CSC zoning. Now we just need a developer to come with a proposal that matches what town has said the zoning was. There.
So anyway, can I just say that I think the productive part of this conversation may be coming to an end. I mean, I think Auden summed it up really well, and I'm gonna kind of just stop at that. And you heard what you heard. If Ryan has a way of communicating that to you in a different or a better way than what Auden and all of us just did, then I would say, Ryan, you go for it, and if that requires communications among all of us, one-on-one again, like we sometimes have to do to get things clear, then let's do that. But I don't see that we have any more to talk about tonight. So I hope that you can take this information and we can move forward, because I would love to get this done. I think all of us would love to get this done, especially those of us like Susan, me, Bill Kane, people who've been here since dirt, trying to get it something that is for our community done. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Hey, we ended on time.
Did. How much more do we have? I gotta get home.
Yes.
I move that the town council continue public hearing to October 9th, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
And FYI, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
sorry.
I gotta go.
The applicant, Tim, will be
Stay
out
tuned.
of town on the 9th, so we will end up through the agenda having to continue it to the 26th, but
All
it's
right.
good that it's on the 9th, so,
All right.
yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
All right.
23rd,
So
I'm sorry, yes.
we're gonna cut Gary loose because he's got a kid running loose at home, and we still have a quorum, so we're good, right?
You still have a quorum, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Jeff, we're good, right?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Okay, our next item is selection process for Roaring Fork Charity Classic and appointment of 2 counselors to be on the selection recommendation committee. Watkins, Falk, Gray. You should have run while you had a chance.
How'd your marathon go? Did you have your marathon already?
Coming up.
Oh, coming up. Oh,
When is
okay.
it?
Weekend after this.
Shouldn't you be home napping or something?
He'd do it off the couch.
Don't be afraid, we're all fine. Okay,
He
go
wants
ahead.
us to stop picking on him. Are you ready? I'm ready to get this over with.
Yeah, let's do it. It's gonna be short, so. Okay, let's go, let's do it.
So the Roaring Fork Club Charity Classic is a great event and a great opportunity for Basalt charities, nonprofits, general Basalt causes. It was memorialized by the annexation agreement that brought the Roaring Fork Club into the town. And the idea that we have is to just pretty much keep it the same as it has been. There are criteria for the selection of beneficiaries that were established by past town councils, and so we're not proposing to change anything. So right now we're just looking for, and to answer any questions you all have, but to get 2 of you onto the selection committee.
Okay, if nobody here wants to do it, we can put the 2 on who are not here.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Does anybody here want to sit on this
How
committee?
much time is it?
That's what I was just gonna ask.
If Watkins has never done before, it's actually pretty simple, because it's just interviewing that whoever applies and making a recommendation to the town council. So last year we did it at one meeting.
How many applicants do they typically have?
Last time they had 3 applications.
How much money they raise?
It varies from,
Millions?
no.
Okay, I nominate these 2 to sit on this committee instead of talking about it some more. Do I have a second?
If it's
I'm
not that
game.
much time, I know a lot of I do this, like, I know a lot of the charities, so it'll be easy for me, but I don't have a lot of time to spend on it.
Okay. Should we have an
I mean,
alternate if
I'm
if
game.
you can't make it?
I will be alternate.
Okay.
Okay, great. So who all? Is it 2 or?
I nominate,
2 plus a staff
Auden
member.
and Bill plus a staff member and myself, Jennifer Riffle, as alternate
Okay,
to serve as
Second.
selection process and to serve in the selection recommendation committee.
all in favor?
Wait,
Aye.
oh, yes, sorry. There is somebody else, just so you guys know. It's not, it wouldn't just be the 3 of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right.
I thought
Okay.
it was you and
So-
Jeff.
We're actually done with this one. The appointment to Community
Moving right
Office of Energy Corps. Could we get a motion to appoint Katie to this, please?
Mayor, I move that the council appoint Katie Schroer as the town's representative to court.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Anything else?
That's it?
Okay, the only issue that I raised with Ryan today, however, if you look at the agenda for the 9th, it has another swipe at hiring the landscape architect and the engineer to design the parcel that we don't yet know what we're gonna be doing with. And so, I think that that is certainly putting the cart before the horse, and since, as I now understand, based on our conversation today, this is not simply a contractual event. We are not just hiring them for the performance of the work at some later point in time. We are hiring them and they are gonna begin doing work and we are gonna begin spending money that could be for naught. So, I would like to suggest that that not be addressed, or that it be continued yet once more until we know what the heck's gonna be happening with anything, with any of these parcels.
We can either continue it, or we can bring it out and kill it or move it forward. I mean, we don't have to just
Okay.
take it away so we can't talk about it. We can talk about it if we want to.
And in order to talk about it, it needs to be agendized.
Yeah,
Right.
So that would be the
I mean,
only-
that's my thought, is no one of us gets to say, I don't want to talk about that.
But how do you talk about it if you're potentially spending money that you can't spend?
You have a
Because-
discussion about it and you say, I vote that we don't do this.
Yeah, I think
That's-
we
it's
just take
like,
it off at the
yeah.
next one. I think you
Okay.
might have some case for why we should do it, do you?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just have.
So
a
I'll
short-
articulate that, and then if you
Yeah.
guys say nah, then we'll,
Okay.
In the meantime, we're adjourned. Thank you, Pam. Great job, council and staff.
There you go.
it was good.
It was good. It was hard, you know.
Howie,